Another, you know, 30 some miles. And then more time to start. Everybody. Single person. Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, idea how close it is. There he is. I was gonna say, it's the broke land speed records there. Did you get a police escort? Police escort?
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Yeah, I remember.
Relax, folks.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for May 21st, 2024 at 7:03 PM. Can we please have roll call?
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Parnas,
Here.
Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Here.
Mayor Gantz.
Here. Before we stand for our moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance, I'd like all of us to please keep in our thoughts and prayers Jimmy Langlois, a former longtime Deerfield Beach firefighter who recently passed away, and the sudden passing of Kelvin Clark, who was a driver here for our sustainable management department for many years, who passed away just a few days ago. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. For a moment of silence, our pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the ULI workshop, meeting minutes of April 17th, 2024, our lunchtime workshop meeting minutes of April 26th, 2024, and our regular city commission meeting minutes of May 7th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Parnas. Welcome back, sir. And
Thank
a
you.
second by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes, our planning and zoning board meeting minutes of March 7th, our code compliance meeting of March 29th, and our community appearance board meeting of April 24th.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The approval of our agenda tonight for May 21st, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Preston and a giant echo of a second from Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes.
We've missed you so much. You're saying it twice. That's great that we got. Welcome back, Commissioner. Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first item tonight is a little bit of public embarrassment, and I tell us she was very surprised and suckered into being here tonight. But Mrs. Deborah Rothberger is by definition Deerfield Beach Elementary School. As a teacher in Broward County Public Schools, she has only taught at Deerfield Beach Elementary for the last 35 years. And we don't know what the child labor laws were like back then, but somehow you dodged it. You've been the heart and soul of Deerfield Beach Elementary School. Teaching multiple grade levels. She's also spent over a decade as a reading coach and is finishing her illustrious career here as one of the reading interventionists. Ms. Rothberger has served on multiple school and district committees and has impacted at least 2 generations of Deerfield Beach residents. Deerfield Beach Elementary School and the entire city of Deerfield Beach are truly lucky and blessed to have had Ms. Deborah Rothberger cross their path. So congratulations on your retirement. Thank you so much for all you do.
Sure. I haven't seen the voice, I don't think I Emily told me yesterday, she's like, you have to be somewhere at 7, you have to dress nice, and I'm not telling you what it is. So I'm like, is there gonna be food? I'm like, no. So I'm like trying to figure out. So this is a nice surprise. School has been my family for over 35 years. I have grown to love everybody that I've worked with. I even have school daughters. Amanda was here, Alex was here, probably two other my school daughters. But it's been awesome being part of the Deerfield community for all these years. I've taught many students. There's even students that are coming to our school now where I taught their parents. So this is hard for me. I don't have to speak for there, but I just want to thank all of you, and it's kind of bittersweet with this being my last year. But I'll still come by and visit. I can't teach, but you can travel. I am going to travel, but thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we'd like to call up Captain Hofstein to say a few words about his wonderful BSO law enforcement staff.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, residents of Deerfield Beach. And I got the hint, Mr. Mayor, a few words indeed. So thank you guys. Come on forward. Step forward, please. Don't be shy. Always appreciate this opportunity to recognize our staff, the folks behind the scenes that are doing the magic to keep our community safe. Tonight's special because I often bring up our folks, our frontline personnel that are out there, our first responders. But tonight I get to honor 4 of our leaders. These are 4 of our sergeants within the district. We have a complement of 14. I can tell you that sergeant is probably the most important rank and position in the agency. They are the frontline leaders. They are the folks that are leading our frontline personnel up that hill to make that charge. And the planets were in alignment today that I get to recognize 4 of them for the outstanding work they do. Starting on the left, I have Sergeant Atkins, a 38-year veteran of law enforcement and of the agency. He's also, Mr. Mayor, you'll be happy to know, the fearless leader of our traffic unit. So he's the guy responsible for all of our great traffic enforcement, which is so important here, the roadway safety for Deerfield Beach. So, but not only does he lead the traffic unit and make sure that they live up to the high standards that we expect, but he leads by example, which is why all these sergeants are here tonight. So for example, Sergeant Atkins was recognized and nominated by Lieutenant Silva for, on April 3rd, Sergeant Atkins was actually on his agency assigned motorcycle, which he loves to ride and he rides well. And he just happened to be in the area and doing his due diligence when he personally apprehended a thief with $2,249 worth of stolen electronics outside of one of our targets. I'm going to quote Lieutenant Silva because he steals my thunder and said it so well. In the spirit of Harley-Davidson, Sergeant Atkins exemplifies the true essence of freedom and adventure. Just as the motorcycle roars down the open road, Sergeant Atkins patrols the streets with determination and tenacity, embodying the spirit of the American biker. His keen eye for detail and unwavering commitment to duty mirror the precision, engineering, and reliability synonymous with the Harley-Davidson brand. This was not a plug for Harley-Davidson. I'm reading this verbatim, but it was so eloquently said. So just fantastic. Great example of not only making sure that we get business done, but leading by example. Next, I have Sergeant Lisa Douglas Smith, who is a patrol supervisor of one of our 2 daytime squads. She was nominated by Lieutenant Levine for an incident that occurred on April 7th, a disturbance call involving a burglary. And Sergeant Smith, not in the office, in the field, responded with her squad personally. And even though we were experiencing a lot of challenges and priority calls that day, Sergeant Douglas Smith herself observed the suspicious person / suspect as he sat in a crowded area. And he actually was causing a disturbance as a distraction. But her keen eyes recognized this was the suspect that we were looking for. He was apprehended. He was charged with the crime as well as for active warrants. And for her quick response and attention to detail, she was nominated for apprehending a fleeing felon. So again, another great example of leading by example. Third, I have here, the most shy of the bunch, Sergeant Abrams. Sergeant Abrams, coming out of the shadows and actually donning a uniform because he's often in tactical gear, supervises our crime suppression team. So our crime suppression team is responsible for fighting all of our violent crime and the worst scourges on our streets. He was nominated also, along with his team, for an outstanding operation that they conducted at an area hotel in March. And after 6 hours of surveillance, they apprehended a suspect who was wanted for a warrant for first-degree murder with a firearm, as well as attempted murder with a firearm. As you know, these types of situations often can devolve when you're apprehending such a dangerous suspect at a hotel into a barricade situation, a hostage situation, but it was handled so operationally well and so tactically and tactfully that he was taken into custody safely. I also love to throw these numbers out. Year to date, under his leadership, the team has made 95 arrests, which includes 74 felony suspects. A large number of those are documented gang members. They've taken 13 stolen firearms off the streets. They've recovered 10 stolen vehicles and almost 2 pounds of cocaine, marijuana, and crack. And most importantly, 3,000 lethal doses of fentanyl have been removed from our city streets. That's not an exaggeration. 3,000 lethal doses. So outstanding work, Sergeant Abrams. Last but not least, the newest addition to our supervisory team. He's our newest sergeant, but he's not new to law enforcement, a 13-year veteran also a very accomplished canine handler, has just done an outstanding job, just right out of the gate. His leadership is exemplary, leading the charge. And this was a situation we had on April 17th when a victim was accosted by another driver in a road rage incident. He actually recorded him on a cell phone shooting at him and his vehicle was actually struck 4 times. And through leveraging our technology, which we're very fortunate to have here in the city, but most importantly, good old-fashioned police work, Sergeant Edwards was actually able to immediately identify the suspect. And within several hours, the suspect was arrested for several felonies, including attempted homicide, and they also recovered the firearm. So it was outstanding coordination, again, outstanding leadership. All of them together, it's not just what they do and how they do it, but the example that they set for their subordinates and our other deputies. So we talk about leadership and what it embodies, but this is a great example of all of them leading by example, which I'm so proud of. So for this, thank you. I hope that's only a few words, Mr. Mayor. And I want to applaud you all for being selected as our deputies of the month and doing the outstanding job that you're doing as our agency leaders. Thank you very much.
We have 2 presentations that we're about to do, and I don't want to take away from the importance of them, but I also know there's a lot of people here that are looking forward to going out and celebrating, so I'm gonna let them take a few minutes to leave the room before we start to our next item. Thank you. City Manager, would you like to introduce our next presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. This next presentation is going to be given by our Assistant Director of Environmental Services, Mr. Joshua Neiman. And I thought it would be a good idea to present this as the EPA has recently released its final rulings and regulations for the regulation of PFAS chemicals within water treatment facilities. And I think it's a really good story to tell. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Josh.
Thank you, David. Mayor, City Commission, Josh Neiman, Assistant Director of Environmental Services. Today, I'm here to give you a breakdown of the EPA, PFAS, and PFOS regulations and guidelines that we're going to see throughout the next 5 years. This is similar to the breakdown that I gave you during our commission luncheon, but I did go into a little bit more in depth as far as some of our testing routines, as well as some of the data that we collected during that stuff. So a little bit of background about per and polyfluoral substances, which are PFAS. They're man-made chemicals manufactured in the United States through a variety of industries in the 1940s. Most noticeably Teflon. Basically, what it is a long change polymer derived of carbon atoms. And the reason the U.S. government decided to make this chemical was for waterproofing of their tanks in World War On March 14th, EPA published a proposed national drinking water standard for the six substances that we know of. And that proposal was finalized and will regulate the PFAS and PFOS contaminants, and it will also regulate 4 additional components of those chemicals. So an overview of the, a little bit of overview on the compound ruling. So on April 10th, 2024, the Environmental Protection Agency published that final ruling. And what that does is it establishes maximum contaminant levels for these contaminants. Most of those contaminant levels for PFAS and PFOS are 4 parts per trillion, and then the other 4 are 10 parts per trillion. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, a part per trillion is like an eyedropper taking 1 drop and adding it to an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's how small the measurable quantity that we're actually measuring here. Next slide, please. So what is the city of Deerfield Beach and our water treatment plant doing about it? One of the things that we're required to do under the 5th unregulated contaminant ruling, we are required to monitor all 29 PFAS compounds at the point of entry, as well as several other areas within the distribution system. Some of those testing results are shown below, and I won't go into detail as far as what the results are, but it does show PFAS in our drinking water after treatment. Next slide, please. Here's some additional testing results, and this testing results came from all of our surficial wells, as well as our Floridan wells. The surficial wells are those shallow aquifer wells, anywhere from 60 to 90 feet. And then the Floridan wells run anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 feet deep. Generally, we see that those deeper aquifer wells don't have the contamination level that you generally see in the surficial aquifers. Next slide, please. So this next slide shows a little bit of the data that we collected through our treatment process. And what it does is it goes through the 3 different treatment processes that we have at the water plant, which is nanofiltration, reverse osmosis, and lime softening. Nanofiltration and reverse osmosis are identical, with the exception of the pressure that it takes to drive water through that membrane and split the good water versus the bad water. So the majority of the PFAS that we're seeing in our drinking water now, post-treatment, are coming from that lime softening, and I'll address that here in the next slide. Next slide, please. So EPA is going to require us to start initial monitoring, and that has to be done by 2027. The city has already undergone that initial monitoring, which was shown on those previous pages. The water system must also provide information about the PFAS and what those levels are to EPA, as well as DEP, which is the oversight agency for the state. Getting back to those wells, we've already addressed a lot of the testing requirements, and we do show PFAS in all of our surficial wells throughout the entire city. We have 2 well fields, one on the eastern side of the city near the cemetery, and then another one located on the FCC corridor, as well as 2 on Southwest 10th Street. All of those surficial wells do show contaminants. The ones being on the eastern side that are older do show a higher level. Next slide, please. So the public water systems have until 2029 to implement solutions that are going to reduce the PFAS within the drinking water or the wells and how we're going to treat that. And so what the city of Deerfield Beach and the water plant have done is we've measured what is coming out of reverse osmosis, nanofiltration, and lime softening. Now, currently, reverse osmosis treats about 5% of the drinking water that's consumed within the city. Nanofiltration treats about 35%. And then lime softening treats about 60%. And the reason that 60% with lime softening is the most affordable, as well as the go-to treatment for South Florida. a lot of our utilities in South Florida use lime softening and are starting to migrate to membrane treatment purely because of the regulations. But prior to that, they were not going to it because of the expense to run my membrane treatment. So what are we going to do about lime softening? Lime softening is going to be phased out with the ion exchange project that we're currently starting design with. And some of those dates, we're expecting final design in February of 2025 for ion exchange. Construction is anticipated to start in April of that year. And then construction should be completed by sometime in October of 2026, well before the established deadline that we will have to meet for EPA. Next slide, please. So one additional thing for the PFAS is there's tons of litigation going on with the PFAS and requiring these companies that manufacture these chemicals to help offset the cost of what these treatment processes are going to cost. And the city right now is currently in litigation with Fiera Law. They are helping us litigate against several different litigants. And those litigants include 3M, DuPont, Tyco, and then various other small companies. And just recently, DuPont settled for $14 billion to serve the public water sector to help offset those costs. I know just 2 weeks ago, Tyco settled for another $750 million, which should help offset those costs that we're going to see as we phase lime softening out and start moving to ion exchange, which will help eliminate the PFAS. I did include in the presentation a hyperlink that will allow residents to go look at some of the other things associated with PFAS and some questions that can be answered if I didn't answer them during the presentation. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. The PFAS in the water, you're saying that in the treatment, you're detecting PFAS. I mean, it's just something that's going to be there. My question is, in our treatment of that, in plain English, are you satisfied with where we are? And does the PFAS present some health concerns that maybe we should talk about?
From a treatment standpoint and where we stand today, we're absolutely ahead of the curve. Just by already starting the ion exchange design process, we're well in front of the ball with where we're going to need to be in the future. As far as health effects, they are known carcinogens. The studies are starting to elongate to really show long-term health effects. And, you know, some of these chemicals that were manufactured are not good, and they're not good for the body. And we're seeing that now.
I remember hearing in one report that the cholesterol level is increased because of PFAS. And so there's a multiplicity of health concerns, and the fact that we can say that we're ahead of the curve is a good thing. I don't know what else. Is there anything else that you feel that could be done to accelerate the process?
So one of the things that's fundamental with the process is the science is finally caught up for us to actually test to these low quantities. And what has happened and been established because of these rulings is science is caught up and allowed us to actually test to that 4 parts per trillion. So before this, we were only allowed, able to test to 4 parts per billion, which is massively more as far as quantity. And so now we're able to actually test for that low quantity within the water supply. And then another note, I just watched, a week and a half ago, a movie called Dark Water based on a true story about PFAS. It's on Netflix, and I don't want to, but it was a very, very informative movie that, really showed the history behind the PFAS.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these are what they call those forever chemicals, those chemicals
That is correct.
that have been there, I guess, since the 40s. Before that, they weren't in existence because they weren't developed.
That's correct.
But there's no industry within our area now where more of these chemicals are infiltrating our water. Is that also accurate, or is there still areas within our city or where we get our water where these pollutants can still be going into our water?
So I would have to bet that, most of the households in the city of Deerfield Beach have Teflon coated pans still at home. So even that is polluting our water. As far as some of the businesses within the city, they have to follow stringent guidelines as far as disposal and treatment methods on those disposals. So I would say that we are in the process of cleaning that up. But it's hard to tell whether we have any current polluters that are making this worse. I would have to bet that a lot of the pollution that we're seeing in the water and these chemicals have been there for a long time.
Okay. And what about our residents who do not get the water from Deerfield Beach? They get it from Pompano Beach, with the former unincorporated Broward County. What is happening with that? Because they're also our residents. How can they find out about their water and
So
what's
most of
happening to
those-
prove that?
Yeah, most of those residents are in unincorporated Deerfield Beach and get their water from Broward County.
Mhm.
And Broward County is going to be required to follow the exact same standard and regulations that we are. So they're going to get whatever Broward County decides to do, but whatever it is, it will have to meet or exceed EPA and DEP's requirements for the PFAS regulations.
Do we know if there are any plans at the county level to go in the direction that we're already headed?
I do not know, but that is definitely something that we can look into.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
To Commissioner Hudak's point, there was some discussion recently by the county commission about exactly what you're talking about and them approving their systems that's going to cost millions and millions of dollars, where water bills for county water may triple or quadruple easily in the future because of the changes that need to be made. So they're aware.
Thank you very much.
you.
Appreciate it. City manager, who's going to do our, say, Ms. Maury from Economic Development's going to come down for our summary of our city commercial brokers breakfast.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And so back on May 2nd, we had a commercial realtors brokers breakfast, and this occurred after we had our ULI density workshop. And we're all familiar with some of the comments that were made in the ULI density workshop. And whether or not you agree with them is, obviously a matter of personal opinion. I certainly think that the city of Deerfield Beach has an identity and is moving forward in a positive direction with economic development. I think even one of the items that you have on here tonight, 18, will prove that economic development is occurring in the city with growth. But the commercial realtors breakfast and the great job that the economic development team, and I want to tip my hat to Caitlin Coyer, who actually did the video, I think was really kind of living proof for me that of the accomplishments that we've seen in this arena. So I thought it would be good. I know you all didn't have an opportunity to come to that event. Many of you didn't. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity for you to see that. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Chris Maury. Or we're going to start with the video. Okay, great.
Deerfield Beach is so much more than just a pretty beach. As the northernmost corridor of Broward County, the city extends more than 5 miles from our coast.
Deerfield is really a great spot within the Tri-County area. It allows us to draw from all 3 counties, very centrally located, very convenient for our associates to get to and from work.
Anytime I talk to someone who's looking to bring their business into Deerfield Beach, I have to talk about how strong this business community is. They go out of their way to really support one another.
I would not just say the city say it, I would say the locals say it. It's a vibrant business community, diverse culturally, and also very supportive place to be as a living space and also as an entrepreneur.
A number of years ago when we were thinking about a new campus, we're so deeply embedded in this community that there was no question that Deerfield Beach was the place that we would sink our roots.
I'm a member of the Economic Development Council, and it's so nice to be a part of like-minded individuals rowing in the same direction, looking for ways to innovate and improve what we can do here in Deerfield Beach.
The city is sitting on tremendous assets. I mean, if you take the time to look at everything the city has, it's a great possibility for redevelopment. You look at, you have a wonderful beach area. You have City Hall, police station, a gorgeous park. All these assets are nice, but they could be repositioned, redeveloped, and make it more of a destination, more of an economic engine.
I'm very excited about what Deerfield has to offer now, but I'm more excited about what's coming and what we have to offer for the future.
The fact that the city's willing to reinvest in the city itself, in the infrastructure, for its citizens, in the overall community is very appealing.
The city has been just so strategic and thoughtful in their planning, and it really gives so much confidence ensuring that financial and economic stability moving forward.
The common denominator is always what's good for the community. And that's a very good feel in order to inspire developers to come up with great developments.
There was no doubt in my mind that Deerfield is where I needed to be because it checks all the boxes for me.
You know, Deerfield means home.
Thank you. So I'm Chris Morey, Director of Economic Development. Yes, didn't Caitlin do an outstanding job on that video? I thought it was
Excellent job.
very nice. So the city manager asked me to give you a presentation. This is a very, very, very condensed presentation of the highlights of there was actually 2 presentations given at the event. This is kind of like preaching to the choir because I know you all know almost all of this information. But I think it is important for you to see the information that we shared with the commercial broker industry and those professionals, because yes, we are telling the outside world, you know, what Deerfield Beach is about and what our vision is and what we're doing. You know, we're going to bring that message back to ULA when they come back next time to make sure that they know that we do have a vision and we do are moving the button forward. So the first part of the presentation was delivered by the incomparable Ken Krasnow of Colliers International. I might not do as good of a job as he does because he really is the numbers guy, but I can take you through some of these, some of the major points that he made during his presentation. Some of these themes, of course, are not new news. We have a tightening labor market and a labor shortage. You know, the good news is that Florida still has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. And we're so lucky to be here in that climate. Broward County has 3.1% unemployment. And so while that's good, that of course creates a pressure on the job market and makes it hard for employers to find employees for their positions. So that's an ongoing issue for us. CPI, I think now it's going to be commonly referred to instead of, you know, consumer price index. It's going to be called consumer price inflation for quite a while, actually. And as you can see here, you know, there's persistent inflation. It lingered well above the Fed's 2% target. Consumer prices surged by 4% in March, marking the third consecutive month of robust inflation. So, this is, here to stay for the foreseeable future, and something that the Fed really needs to take a look at to correct for overall economic recovery. Some of the good news, and we discussed this when we were meeting together as the CRA, as we saw, with construction, the most recent construction contract, this is the bright side that, and some welcome relief in the stabilization of construction costs in that industry. As you can see, some examples here of the cost of steel, concrete, HVAC, and roofing have all stabilized somewhat. And so that's really very positive news. It's one component of the construction industry that is giving us a break, and might be encouraging, construction where it might not have happened before. This is a chart that, we've seen now several times, in the policy formats that we've looked at. And, the good news here is that Deerfield Beach, with a population of 85,000, has 75,000 jobs. I'll just say that again. We have 75,000 jobs. I mean, that's incredible. We have a wonderful economic base in the city. But, when you look at this, of those jobs, 43,000 are held by people that are coming into the city to take those jobs. Only 4,000 people actually live and work here. And so that's something that's, we've talked about it before, and that's something that we need to continue to work on. And how do we get those people to stay here and live here? Of course, that's by, creating new, better housing opportunities for them. So again, that's a policy consideration for us to be working towards in the future. So now we look at the different market comparisons in the different industry segments. First of all, we'll look at office trends. The good news is that the office market continues to recover from the effects of COVID. We don't currently have market or office space under construction, but as you'll see later in the presentation, we have many office projects in the planning stage. But Deerfield Beach continues to have one of the most affordable office markets in Broward County and actually all of South Florida, which is one reason that our overall vacancy rate in the market segment is 95. We're 95% full. So we have a less than 5% vacancy rate. In terms of retail trends, same thing, the retail market is stabilizing back from COVID. It's an opportunity for growth in the commercial sector, especially, and as we talk about later in this presentation, we have an opportunity for retail development along the Dixie Highway corridor being our best opportunity for new retail development. And Ken went through some moving forward or trends to look forward in the future. You can see, obviously shoppers are becoming more knowledgeable because of online information. When they go to shop, they know exactly what they're going to want. But the one I wanted to highlight with you is the second one, the core retail and demand. And, with persisting inflation being something and the increasing competition with e-commerce, it shouldn't be surprising that supermarket anchored developments, retail developments, are now, more viable than anything else. And again, this is something that has a policy implication for Dixie Highway, because we've talked for a long time about how a national grocery store chain could be a catalytic project in the Dixie Highway area. So that's an action step for us. In industrial trends, I could talk for this entire evening about our industrial base in Deerfield Beach. As my colleague Eric Powers says, Deerfield Beach is geographically gifted, and we are so fortunate to have our industrial and office base in our parks out west and along the I-95 corridor. Those 75,000 jobs, that area is our bread and butter. We're so strong in this sector, and we've remained consistently strong. With 78,000 square feet of net absorption this past year. Our vacancy rate is 2.5%. That's beyond enviable. And so, businesses know that they want to be here because it's a great location at a great price, great value. Multifamily trends. It seems like we've been talking a lot about multifamily this past year. Same thing, we have very little available stock in multifamily. We do have new construction that's underway, but even though we have new construction, our rents have remained relatively stable. So Deerfield Beach continues to be an affordable option for multifamily housing in the South Florida market. So thinking ahead, where are we going this next year? And you can see some of the major trends. Excuse me. And unfortunately, higher for longer interest rates is one of them. So that's something that's going to continue to put a bit of a damper on development and new development starts. Excuse me. Inflation will continue to be an issue. But mobility and connectivity is an issue that we're going to be embracing, rebuilding tourism and civic investment in infrastructure, which is a theme I'll begin to talk about as we go into the next part of the presentation. So what else did ULI tell us when they came here? They said that developers don't want to be the first one in, and good thing, because Deerfield Beach is the first one in. And so, we've really done our job in terms of investing in our redevelopment areas first. And so I'll go faster through these because you're all very much aware of these projects. In fact, we just had the grand opening of the Braithwaite Center last weekend. That's a $13.7 million investment in our Central City redevelopment area. Johnny Tigner Center is scheduled to open in July 2024. That's an $11 million investment in our Central City area. Also, right across the street, we have the first portion of the underground improvements associated with stormwater handling for Northeast 2nd Avenue redevelopment, Northeast 2nd Avenue being the main north-south spine through Pioneer Grove. In the future, Northeast 2nd Avenue will be further developed to have newer, friendlier roadway, connections to Broward County Transit and future commuter rail, on-street parking, and decorative lighting. And then some of the private projects that we have underway. You just recently approved Mela Deerfield, of course. That's 360 new multifamily residential units at a very visible I-95 location with new facades on that office space. Vista Clara is now in permit review. As a reminder, it's a mixed-use development with 326 residential market rate units and the new boardwalk along the Hillsborough River. Tallman Pines is under construction with 75 affordable senior residential units, 135 family-style affordable housing villas. That's on South Dixie Highway. And of course, we're just so proud of this project moving forward, the 1045 Southwest 11th Way project. Now we're kind of starting to call it Deerfield Gateway. And you can be reminded of the enormity of this project and just the great catalytic impact that this is going to have for the Southwest 10th and I-95 corridor. The medical office district is another public-private partnership that's emerging. It's actually ongoing. We've always had a relationship with the hospital, but our vision is to look at new zoning along Sample Road and the areas around the hospital. Our hospital is one that doesn't have associated medical office uses around it, and we'd like to see that Sample Road corridor change to meet that need. In addition, the hospital is, of course, in its own planning to redevelop its site to accommodate their new partnership with FAU Medical School and their co-branding, and the eventual presence of 500 medical interns at the North Broward campus, which is just a very exciting development there. The commuter rail station, another ULI studied project. We continue to work on that. In fact, tomorrow there's a meeting for the folks that are on the southern end or the southern leg of that BCT commuter rail project. And so we're going to be sitting in on that meeting to get a front row seat about what to expect when we're talking, about the planning process once they figure out how to cross a train over a river in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Also in terms of public-private partnerships, and this is something you'll see more of as part of the budget process this year is the excitement that's growing around the downtown Deerfield redevelopment project around City Hall. Coming up on June 17th and 18th, we're bringing back the Urban Land Institute. We have another Dream Team panel put together. We're going to be having our first meeting with them on Thursday of this week. And they're going to be looking at the 20 acres of City Hall, the BSO headquarters, and Pioneer Park, and talking about concepts for redevelopment of this overall site for a new and enhanced civic center for downtown Deerfield. Pioneer Grove, we talked about earlier. Again, this large area is starting to see redevelopment. Developers are interested by the 2,150 new residential units that are permitted there, and the densification incentives that are available in Pioneer Grove. Here's some more pictures of Pioneer Grove. Eric definitely would do a better job of talking about Pioneer Grove than I do. Next time we'll have more of a planning emphasis, I promise. But again, we're getting some real steam with us in terms of Central City area with our Housing First approach. We're working on the Dixie Highway rezoning, focusing on the nodes at Southwest 10th and Dixie and Hillsborough Boulevard and Dixie. We've had over 24 calls off of our development opportunities signs that we put up there. Bernard Jones, our new redevelopment specialist, spending the whole day on Friday with developers touring that area and taking them on car rides around Deerfield Beach. So, we really hope to do something with the interest in the Dixie Highway area. I mentioned earlier that through the budget process this year, we'll be talking about funding for Cultural Arts District, downtown Deerfield, and a new concept that we have. It's highly conceptual at the staff level called The Well, and that's an adaptive reuse for the East Side Wellfield property across the street from the Braithwaite Center. This is a map I borrowed from Horace, and he did a real good job with our GIS team, but I thought I'd bring it back because, again, if we're talking to commercial brokers and they're not so familiar with Deerfield Beach, this is impressive. But I think it should also be impressive for us as a city and for you as leaders, because once you put it on a map and see it all together, yeah, there's a lot going on in our city, and there's a lot of energy around Pioneer Grove and our Central City area. This map highlights all of the projects that are either approved, planned, or underway. And so, you can see on the west side, the Braithwaite Center and the Well, the pink projects being the private sector projects with Vista Clara, some projects with MWI, our upcoming Chick-fil-A on Federal Highway, and then more than likely a new project coming forward back at Eller and Federal Highway as well. And then with the downtown Deerfield project, looking at the synergy coming together with incorporating perhaps all of these yellow city uses, Pioneer Park, City Hall, BSO headquarters, potentially rolling in the post office and the library as well. So we're, excited about that energy that's happening. Certainly, the downtown Deerfield project promises very much to be a catalytic project for the redevelopment of Pioneer Grove in the Central City area. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We're now on item 5 of tonight's agenda. Item 5 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving and adopting a substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan to reallocate $426,482.05 of unexpended Community Block Grant CB1 and CB3 program funds from rental and utilities assistance and planning administrative assistance to sidewalk projects in eligible areas, authorizing the city manager to execute all applicable documents relating to the substantial amendment, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Greetings, Mayor, Commission, Jonathan Salas, Community Services. So before you have a substantial amendment to the CDBG funds. So the City of Deerfield Beach, we're an entitlement city, so we're eligible for federal funds through CDBG. So during the global pandemic, we received 2 tranches of funds, what we call CDBG CV1 and CDBG CV3, which was close to $1 million. So we were able to expend about $500,000 in utilities assistance, rental assistance, and mortgage assistance. So as we became more comfortable in the pandemic and we learned how to operate, the rules from HUD constantly was changing. So it was very difficult to assist residents with those services. So we haven't been able to expend close to about 400,000. So what we're doing now is we work very close with HUD to identify what eligible projects we can engage in with those funds. So we were able to determine that we can do infill sidewalks throughout the city, which we've identified several areas throughout the city where there's missing sidewalk segments. So this substantial amendment tonight will be to allow us to expend those CDBG CV1 and CV3 funds, which we must encumber them by September 30th of 2024. And we must expend it by December 30th of 2025. So what I'm asking for is for commission to consider approving this so that we can move forward with those funds.
Thank you. Commission comments, questions? Okay, is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Come on up to the podium.
Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach, Florida. It says sidewalk projects in eligible areas. Does that include those city sidewalks that are presently in a state of disrepair and need to be repaired?
Anyone else from the public? Anyone online? All right, close it to the public. City manager?
To answer the question, the answer is yes, it does, and it is for the areas in the census tracts in which for CDBG eligible projects.
Okay. Basically, what it means is that yes, it can be used for existing sidewalks as long as they're in the area in which the CDBG funds can be used. Not all areas of the city fall under that category, but in areas where in those areas where existing sidewalks are that need to be repaired, that money can be used for that. Did I get that right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas, Commissioner Parnas, you have to unmute.
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes. Yes.
Vice Mayor
yes.
Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 6 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending the City of Deerfield Beach land use plan designation for the city-owned parcel consisting of approximately 1.52 gross acres located at 555 Southwest 3rd Avenue from city conservation to residential medium 16 dwelling units per acre, LUPA number 66A, providing for amendment of the future land use map of the comprehensive plan accordingly, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. And this is first reading.
City manager, who's making our presentation?
I have Eric Power to provide the presentation on the 555 project. To tee it up, this is a parcel located off of MLK that is currently in a land use that's under the county code. And I'll turn it over to Eric to begin.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Plan Development Services. Yay, all right, look at that. All right, so I'll get to the aerial in a second just to explain the situation. This has come before you once before. Last year, I brought this item to the commission. This is a vacant piece of land the city's owned since the 1970s. It's adjacent to Tivoli Sandpine Preserve. It is not part of the Sandpine Preserve. It is designated under our land use as conservation because back in the 1970s, that's what they called open space. Broward County has since changed all of their conservation land uses to the term open space, but the city of Deerfield Beach did not do so back at that time. So it has stayed as conservation, but it is not. It's just actual open space. Because the land has been vacant for so long, and we've had no development opportunities. The city was encouraged to look for affordable housing options in Deerfield Beach. This is an opportunity for affordable housing. And in order to go through what we call the property disposition process, which is where an applicant can come forward to the city to either request to purchase or donate land to them for development, because of the land use and the rezoning designation, the city felt it was in our best interest to go through the process of changing the land use, and then if approved, coming back to commission to change the zoning to make the land available for actual development. If we gave this property disposition to, say, a Habitat for Humanity, some other developer, they would have to go through this process. And they'd be going back before you to commission to do that, and that's not appropriate. So anyways, that is the goal, to basically make the change to RM16, residential multifamily, 16 units per acre approximately. There is no plan yet. There's no development application. There's no architect on file. This is just a process, but doing sort of the quick and dirty math that we do, where you take away setbacks and what streets would be and those types of things, there could be approximately 25 townhomes or villas on this particular property. I don't know if that would be the actual number, but that's the number that kind of could occur, probably not more, possibly less, depending on what any future developer might want to build. But it will be only affordable housing. It will not be garden apartments or high rise or 7-Eleven or anything else. It's going to be only for affordable housing. It would be deed restricted by the county to do so. In fact, we are going through a process that Broward County has in which they fast track these applications and do not charge a fee, because the county land use fee is approximately $20,000, which we're not paying for affordable housing projects. So that is the process we're going for. We would not be able to go and change it once we got approval from Broward County and put something else on here that wasn't affordable housing. So just quickly, this is a map, an aerial to show you, highlighted the city property. To the north is another vacant piece of land, a private property. When you drive by the two, you really cannot discern the difference, but they are two separate parcels. So the private property and the city property do not have any relationship, but I wanted to point that out because when you look at that, if you're seeing it, it looks like a very large piece of land, when in reality, it's actually two separate pieces. And just to the south, again, you can see the Tivoli Sandpine Preserve, which is not associated with this property either. With that, I think I have any questions.
Thank you. Commission, any questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item?
Hi, good evening. Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, District 3, Deerfield Beach 33442. I'm an alternate member of the Deerfield Beach Planning and Zoning Committee. I'm definitely in favor of this. The bottom line, we need affordable housing in Broward County. We need affordable housing in Deerfield Beach. As the official had said, 43% of the jobs in Deerfield Beach are for people who live outside the city. We need to bring them into the city. The more housing, the more revenue. The more housing, better opportunities for business in the city, more revenue. More housing, more improvements, more revenue. It's a good cycle. We need positive growth in Deerfield Beach, and I believe that this is an excellent first step. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 7 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting an amendment to the city budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, approving supplemental appropriations and budget transfers to and within various city funds, and reducing appropriations to the 2018 Construction Revenue Bond Fund by $7,794,885 as set forth in the attached Exhibit A, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. This is second reading.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. As this is second reading, I will recognize that during the first reading, there was no questions from the commission nor questions or comments from the public. So I will take a moment just to go through the item briefly. I want to first talk about the general fund, and within the general fund, the first item is that we receive pension contributions from the state, and they pass through the state to the city into that pension fund. So it's a recognition that I'm going to use rounded numbers here, that $400,000 is to reflect that. Additionally, we have realized some additional revenues in certain categories that we weren't expecting. The first one being the boat ramp parking fees. We had anticipated that I believe it's pier number 5 would be under renovation at this point, but it looks like that will probably take place next year. So we will see some additional revenues from boat ramp parking fees, as well as some additional revenues from various things like the opioid litigation proceeds and some community contributions that we received. Those tend to be the major ones. There are some interfund transfers that are occurring here as it relates to the beach lot acquisition and the completion of the West Community Center renovation project. I want to point out that beach lot acquisition is being offset by those additional revenues. So at this point, it does not seem as though we will need to use the undesignated fund balance for that purchase. And just interesting enough, I also want to point out that the property appraiser has revalued that particular beach lot. It's now valued at close to $1.5 million. So we were able to obviously acquire that for a good price. Going into the construction revenue bond fund. So early in the budget process, as a matter of fact, so if you think about it being May, June timeframe, right now is when we're asking departments to guesstimate how much of their projects they are going to be bringing forward into the next year, right? So you have a construction project that spans, 2 or 3 fiscal years, and you're estimating how much of that money is going to be needed in the next year. Obviously, appropriated in a previous budget, but we're carrying it forward. And so with those estimates, sometimes things move faster or slower. In this case, they moved a little faster, and $7.7 million of that was spent last year that we anticipated that we would be spending this year. So that's really all that kind of represents there. And then within the Energy Performance Fund, we had revenues from the investments that we have earned on the capital lease proceeds, which are being used to offset some purchases in the Solid Waste Fund. And within the Solid Waste Fund, we had a transfer out of the interfund transfer from the Solid Waste Operating Fund to the Solid Waste Capital Fund for capital purchases, which were already approved just recently, in fact, by the City Commission for purchase of vehicles and equipment. So that's the fund transfer for that purpose. Within the Stormwater Fund, we had a reappropriation of some expenditures to recognize the interfund transfer to the Stormwater Capital Fund for the West Deerfield Drainage Improvement Project and stormwater improvement projects that were used to complete the financing for the 8th Ave project as well. And those are the highlights of the mid-year budget amendment. Happy to address any questions that the commission may have.
Okay. Commission, any questions? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Close it to the public then. Commission?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
We're now at the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. The time for public comment on an item that is on tonight's agenda is after we read the title and the record, and the public comment period for that item is open. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Good evening, Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. At the last commission meeting, Oceanside Beach Service was awarded a contract to provide chairs and umbrellas in 5 separate zones on the beach with 25 spots per zone approved by the city. This RFQ had only one response, and that was of Oceanside. When asked by the city why they allowed more than 25 spots per zone, the city said it was allowing this leniency since it provides more revenue to the city. I caution the city in allowing this, as this could have been the reason why more vendors did not bid. If they took into consideration of the 25 per zone limit and chose not to bid because the funds were not feasible, they have the right to come back to the city and appeal the RFQ. And even if they don't, it still looks very bad on the city to show leniency to some vendors and no leniency to others. When Tulamana asked to add canopy covers for her diners, she was told that it would cause issues with the other bidders, that they could file suit against the city. How is this not the same? It really shows how the city that treats its vendors, and I should know as I am one, or at least I was. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Lucia Del Genio, 707 North Shore Drive. I don't know if anyone is aware, because we don't see a lot of international news anymore. Brazil is having on the very southernmost state, is having an epic, almost biblical proportion floods. The death toll and all the homes and businesses, the whole towns are underwater. And we do have here in town a Brazilian doctor, and his name is Thomas Soderberg from the Familia Medical Clinic. So I do have the information here if anybody would like to contribute with things that they're sending, literally tons of clothing, shoes, and necessities to those areas in Brazil, and they're sending many ship containers. So if anyone would like to help, and I'm here and I have the phone numbers and information. So afterwards, if anybody want to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to take your information and help the doctor send everything to Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Hines, 559 Northwest 47th Terrace. At the last meeting, Waste Management came here and started giving a presentation. They said in 6 years from now, they're going to have to either raise the level of the landfill by 100 feet, or they're going to have to start shipping the landfill material all the way up to Okeechobee. Started thinking about this thing a little bit, and I'd like to present an idea to you guys, and I have a hand that I'll leave with Heather so she can show you what I'm talking about a little bit better. Conservation area number 2. Conservation area number 2 is bordered on the west side by US 27. It's bordered on the south side by I-75 and State Road 84, and it's bordered on the east side by Sawgrass Expressway. It contains about 32 sections of land. It's about 10 miles southwest from the present location of the landfill right now. Conservation area number 2 during the World War II was called the bombing range. There used to be a little bridge going across 84, and fishermen used to use it, and it was a pretty good spot, I guess, for sportsmen. But in 1949, the state created the South Florida Water Management District, and shortly after that, or over a period of few years, they started eliminating access to the fishermen, and they started flooding the ground. That ground's all flooded artificially. All that water you see out there would dry up if they didn't keep it flooded. If I was dictator, what I would do is I'd take 3 sections of that land, and it'd be 2 sections deep in there, which would put it 2 miles inward. So it'd be far enough away for visibility. On the north side of this conservation area number 2, you have a levee or a dike. And it just intersects about where State Road or where Atlantic Boulevard and Sawgrass Expressway meet. There's a spillway right there, but there's a levee right there, which is a natural road that goes all the way to US 27 if you could get on it, but they got it blocked. It's basically no man's land. Nobody uses it. And it just sits there. Most of us don't even see it unless you walk up to the dike and maybe want to go fishing or something. But I don't know how the management district got this land. I don't know if this land actually belonged to Broward County. I don't know any of those facts or anything, but I know that somewhere down the line, this landfill we have is unsustainable. And if you can just picture, if it goes to 100 foot for another 16 years, which would put it to 2046, then after that, it's going to have to be raised again. Could I have another minute, sir?
Good. Please, please.
It'd have to be raised again. And what would be the ultimate? I mean, this thing is in a population center. So if it was moved out there to levee to this conservation area, which when you look at this map, you'll kind of see it's kind of sticking down there by itself. It seems like a natural place to put it. And I would hope that you all would take a good look at it and think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Hello, Commissioners. As a concerned Deerfield Beach taxpayer, it is my obligation to bring to your attention a false statement by the city manager at the April 16, 2024 commission meeting, which may be detrimental to the taxpayers. At that meeting, the city manager sought last-minute approval to renew a contract with Zambelli Fireworks Manufacturing Company. Both Katie Freitag and I asked the commission what compensation Zambelli provided the city for the abysmal fireworks performance on July 4th, 2023. At the 1 hour, 51 minute, and 40-second mark of the meeting, the city manager said the following. Last July 4th, there were some issues with the fireworks, but Zambelli made that up to us at the 2024 Pioneer Days. The attached invoices from Zambelli show a different story. The city paid Zambelli the same price for Pioneer Days fireworks in 24 as they paid in 23. It appears the taxpayers received no discount from Zambelli based on the invoices. And if the city manager tries to explain this by saying Zambelli made it up to the taxpayers by not increasing the price for Pioneer Days 24 versus Pioneer Days 23, let me remind the commission that a 10% price increase from Zambelli would have only come to $850, a mere 2% reduction from the $35,000 that the city paid for the disastrous July 4, 2023 show. Please, commissioners, fulfill your fiduciary duty to the taxpayers and get some answers from the city manager. I spoke with attorney Tom Connick, who informed me there is nothing in the 10-year agreement that prevents a 2-hour parking limit enforced throughout the entire Cove Shopping Center parking lot. But the CRA would rather cater to the beach parking freeloaders and the island employee freeloaders at the expense of the Cove merchants, who pay many different taxes and fees to Deerfield Beach. Further evidence of the CRA's insensitivity to the Cove merchants was brought up recently by the District 1 commissioner. He correctly pointed out that the shuttle bus to the Brews and Blues event was stationed at the Cove parking lot, tying up parking spot that the merchants badly needed. Do we really need outside consultants to inform the CRA that St. Ambrose or just about anywhere else would have been a preferable shuttle bus location instead of the Cove Shopping Center? The District 4 Commissioner said something needs to be done short-term for the Cove parking lot. For starters, how about outlawing shuttle service to the beach from the Cove parking lot on July 4th, Commissioner? Finally, the mayor and I both dislike people who spread misinformation. Misinformation was spewed out in the most recent edition of the New Pelican, where the author wrote an update about the rent situation at the Deerfield Beach Cafe owned by Tula. May I have another minute, Mayor? Deerfield Beach Cafe owned by Tula Amana. She wrote, the magistrate ruled in April that Class Act owes the rent a figure 1.5 times the amount of the original lease. That is incorrect, as that monthly rent number would be only $19,500 a month. The magistrate ruled the new monthly amount owed would be $68,791 per month, or 253% more in rent than what was written in the lease agreement between Tula and the city in the event Tula became a holdover tenant. I'm so glad the city feels so overconfident that the city manager told the New Pelican back in October, I never thought I'd be sitting here in May, still waiting on the court's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public. Just to give everybody an update on waste management, the county's meeting regarding that LUPA, which essentially is the expansion of the Mount Trashmore, was pushed out again. I think, I want to say it was till August or September.
The last date that I heard, Mayor, was September 5th.
Right. So that's a good thing for us, but I think it's also kicking the can down the road, but it gives them more time to come up with their overall master plan. I encourage Mr. Hines to contact his county commissioner as far as using that conservation area number 2, because that's not something as a city that we would be able to direct them to do, but we can also tell them that, you know, that's something that has been suggested to do. I will share this. What came out of that conversation with Waste Management was very clear that they have the opportunity to move some of that waste, the most noxious waste going in there. They have the ability and a plan on where to put it now, but they're refusing to do that because they essentially want that as the one caveat that they can give us for this expansion. But they have the ability, a plan, and a solution right now to do that, and they refuse to do that clearly. So it's extremely disappointing. There are, City Manager, you want to address some of these other things that were brought up? Because I think there seems to be some confusion and yet again, some misinformation.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mayor. And so for the commission to clarify some of the statements that were made, yes, I did say that at April 16th meeting at 1 hour and 50 some odd minutes. But what I meant really wasn't that they provided us any type of discount in terms of the fireworks display from the July 4th show, which didn't go off as planned. But what I meant, and I think I've heard actually these comments from the commission, is they made it up in the quality of the show that they provided us at Pioneer Days. So if I wasn't clear in that, I apologize. But that's really what I meant by they made it up to us. And I think, you know, I've heard several comments from folks that display that they felt the same way. So, but I guess the fireworks display is, of course, at the opinion of, you know, whoever's seeing it. In terms of parking in the Cove, I think, in fact, Commissioner Hudak, we did have that discussion about the shuttle service in the Cove. But I will be honest and frank with the City Commission here. I think when we have these large scale events, whether or not we're providing shuttle service in the Cove or at St. Ambrose, I think we can expect that the free parking is going to be taken up within the Cove regardless. And from staff's perspective, the reason why we wanted to provide that shuttle service was the Cove was more from a safety concern. If you can imagine all those people that are coming across the bridge, we wanted to provide that shuttle service across the the Intercoastal Bridge from a safety perspective and as a convenience as well. So, but we took the comments in the CRA meeting that we received Commissioner Hudak, and we'll look to be partnering with folks like St. Ambrose in the future at your direction. As it relates to the comments that I made back in October, I didn't make those in October. I actually made those last week to the Pelican when I was asked about the situation with the Pierre Restaurant. And yes, my exact quote was, if you would have asked me back in October that we'd be sitting here in May with this still unresolved, yeah, it is a bit surprising. But, you know, can't deal with, can't make any, unfortunately, can't make magic happen with the courts these days, as they are extremely backed up, as I'm sure Vice Mayor Drosky can attest to. So I think that addresses all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you also address, just for clarity, on the beach share rentals? Because I think that seems to be being misconstrued.
Sure. Yeah, what was stated and what is the practice is that they are allowed to set up 25 setups in each section. Okay. And I think a lot of times what people see when they look down the beach is they see, you know, I hear this a lot. I see 100 setups. Well, maybe you do, but maybe you're looking at, you know, 4 or 5 setups all the way down the beach. But additionally, and as we said during the that meeting, when they do reach capacity with 25 chairs, excuse me, 25 setups, which would be an umbrella and 2 chairs per setup in a given location, we do provide them the leeway to provide more. And I want to make the recognition that the folks that are asking for the chairs, they're residents, they are visitors who are coming to Deerfield Beach to enjoy the beach just as much as somebody who doesn't want to enjoy that amenity. So we monitor that. We monitor that every day, Monday through Friday, Saturdays and Sundays, to make sure that the setups that they're putting out are in compliance with the contract. I will say that I know that they do like to creep up on that a little bit when they know that they're going to have a busy day, and we do our best to enforce that.
Is there language in the contract or when you do the RFP and the RFQ regarding that there is flexibility in the 25 setups depending on the demand?
I have to, I think Anthony has it.
Yeah, I can. So in the actual request for proposals that was issued by the city, in the scope of services, it did state that the city shall have the right to increase or decrease the number of locations at the discretion of the city. So anybody that was interested and got a copy of the RFQ, they would all be privy to that information.
Okay, so the theory, and that might be why only one person put it in there, is just inaccurate, because if they'd actually read the contract, they would know that there's some flexibility there.
I can't tell you why one person versus
No, I don't
multiple
think you
submitted.
can, but I think you dispelled the theory on that by saying that it was in the RFP and the RFQ, because I'm pretty sure these people, this isn't their first rodeo, and I think people would know that. So thank you for clarifying. And the difference between that and what that language is, this has language that's very clear. When we went out for the Pier Restaurant years ago, it was based on seating. This is the area you had, and that was what we put out to the public. It wasn't about any flexibility. It wasn't about any covered area there. It was very clear that that would not be included. It was only after that person won that contract that they said they wanted to put those in, which changed the entire dynamic of that RFQ. So it's really an apples and pears comparison on that one, in my opinion. Commissioner Preston?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Going back to this this firework issue here, I can just tell you, I'm personally not comfortable with the idea that, you know, they made it up in the quality of the show. That's not something that's quantifiable, well, that you can really put your finger on. I mean, in my mind, it may be that it wasn't an increase in quality. In somebody else's mind, it could be. So I'd like to, you know, I'm just not comfortable with that. They should have shown definitively, here's a discount. We acknowledge where we went wrong, and here's how we propose to make it up. But to leave it up to the opinion of certain people, that's too subjective. Some people would say there was an increase. Some more might say it wasn't. And so I don't know that the taxpayers are served the best way in that type of criteria of evaluation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next time.
Items 8 through 15 are currently on consent.
Are there any polls by the commission? 8 through 13?
Sorry, Mayor, 8 through 15.
Through 15, sorry. 8 through 15, none from the commission. Okay, is there anyone from the public to comment on any item 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or 14, or 15? No one online? Okay, come on up.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue, number 11. Actually, yeah, number 11. It says here, approving, let me just get the exact wording, approving the award ITB for structural related vehicle equipment repairs on an as needed basis to ASR Services, Inc., authorizing the execution of a contract with ASR Services, Inc., the sole responsive and responsible bidder. So my question is, the words sole responsive and responsible bidder is appearing more and more lately, whether it's an ITB, ITN, or RFP. This is a disturbing trend and should be quite alarming to any city manager. Why is this occurring so often? I'm sure I don't have to go into a whole discussion with the commission approving the award of ITB 2415 VP that when you don't have competitors, the optics don't look really good. When you do not have any competition, when doling out city contracts, it raises questions. And if this happened once in a blue moon, of course, but it's happening at an alarming rate recently. And I just want to make sure that the commission is aware of it, and maybe there's something that can be done so that this disturbing trend does not continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we can close it to the public. Commission?
Motion to approve consent items. 9
Second.
6 through 15.
8 through 15.
Through 15.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak. We have second by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston, Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 16 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Code by amending Chapter 78, Community Appearance Board, Section 78-5, Powers and Duties Appeals, Section 78-6, Submission of Plans and Specifications, and Section 78-7, Evaluation Criteria, Minimum Design Criteria Prerequisite to Issuance of Development Permit, to update the provisions and cross-references consistent with the sign code update. Amending Chapter 98, Land Development Regulations, Article 3, Zoning District Regulations, and Article 6, Supplementary Regulations, to remove signage regulations from Chapter 98 that are addressed in the new sign code. Repealing existing Chapter 102 sign code in its entirety, replacing the existing sign code with the new Chapter 102 sign code set forth in this ordinance, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. This is first reading.
Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Planning and Development Services. So tonight we are bringing to you a comprehensive change to the sign code. We last did this in 2016, so it's been a while. There have been a lot of improvements to the sign world. The sign technology that exists is a little different than it was a few years ago. In a way, we're catching up with some of the terminology and the technology and some of the reasons for why we wanted to bring this forward. But as I've told you before, every time we open up a code section for review, we look at it in its entirety. We look at it to see, how is this code section interpreted? How is it read? Can the average person, understand what is being stated? And one of the things that is very consistent in our sign code is you read a section and it tells you go to another section and it tells you go to another section, and it's confusing, I think, for the average person who's looking for a straight answer over, like, how big can my wall sign be? So in a Herculean effort on our attorney's office, we decided to strike the entirety of the sign code in order to rewrite it in a way that flows correctly. So we have not changed the code. We have not necessarily removed something that was, in the last code section or made it, more restrictive than before. We wanted to recategorize the code so that it's easier to read and understand. And so as a part of that, what will be coming forth after second reading is what we think will be even more helpful is a new business-friendly document that we'll be working to create that'll have a lot of pictures next to definitions, clear to understand, like, I'm a business owner. I'm going to turn to this page. I'm a resident asking questions about my neighborhood signs. I'm going to turn to this page. So it's a document that can be online or printable or available in our office that I think will make a lot more sense even than just reading our code. So that's the other improvement that'll be forthcoming after approval from commission. But just to highlight some of the bigger things. So as you know, the Community Appearance Board handles a lot of the review approval process for signage, including what's called master signage plans. Prior to 2016, every single sign permit actually went to the Community Appearance Board for approval, which was not business friendly. It was certainly a lag in timeframes for building permits. So the process the city went through was strip plazas or plazas that have more than 2 tenants create what's called a master signage program that is approved by the Community Appearance Board, and then building permits can then be approved by staff. It's a much faster process. Of course, it's been 8 years since we started that process, so we had some changes that we wanted to make it a little easier to understand the application process, things like that. So those are really what it comes down to. The other thing we wanted to change was essentially the variance process for signs. When we talk about variances in the city, we talk about hardship that can be physical, right? We talk about hardships that can relate to development-related issues, setbacks, heights, things like that. Signs can be a little bit different and maybe don't necessarily need the same exact sentence structures. And in reality, every sign is a self-created hardship, right? Because you're putting the sign where you're asking to, whereas the literal interpretation of the code is not always as clear. So we wanted to amend that and make it a little simpler in understanding sign language and sort of making signs variances more relative to what that sign is providing, that the sign itself is graphically enhanced, that it's in the right location, that it makes sense for that sign to be there, and those types of things. So we're giving some more ability for a sign variance to be clear, because I think a lot of times we brought sign variances to you in the past and they weren't necessarily clear because we're trying to meet the same variance procedures that you're trying to meet for, say, a setback, right? And so it's not always the same criteria. Regarding building signs, just changing some regulations in regard to logos and making sure it's clarified as to what is a logo. We talked a little bit before on our luncheon about like difference between cabinet signs and wall signs and things like that, just sort of clarifying that in our code. Adding, again, some more language and some definitions that need to be enhanced, including things like, colors of raceways, painting of buildings, ensuring that raceways are also painted to make sure that they match with the building. Lighting, something we wanted to focus on in the new code, about how sign faces can be lit to make sure that there's consistency, prohibiting, colors that could be distracting. So white halo being the color that's permitted because other colors can be distracting at night. That doesn't mean that a sign face can't be a certain color. We're talking about the backlit of a sign. And then, the visibility of signage. And we also did add some new language to prohibited signs. As I was mentioning, there has been a lot of, let's say, creativity in the sign world lately as far as how to create signs. It's not really a comment on the cost of a sign or the creation of a sign. It's more of a comment on the fact that South Florida being, one of the strictest places in the entire country to get a building permit related to wind code and things like that, that some of these signs may be okay somewhere else in the state or somewhere else in the country, but they don't really meet the requirements of the Florida Building Code, and they don't withstand the time and the pressure and the humidity and the rain and other types of things that really happen here in South Florida. Now, going on to some new things that we've added is grand opening signs for businesses. So currently we have no programs for new businesses to announce themselves for grand openings. So we've added a couple different things. One is a single-sided ground-mounted banner sign that can go on the wall itself for a new business. This could be because maybe the sign isn't there yet when they've opened, or that sign could say now opened or grand opening or coming soon, things like that. And a temporary wall bounded banner, so a two-sided sign, not a feather flag per se, but two mounted signs so that it meets, wind regulation and in case a storm comes. And I'm not talking about a hurricane, we're just talking about like summer afternoon storms, which we know can be pretty aggressive. So allowing those types of signs to be up for 60 days upon the application submittal for the certificate of use. And also, and that's just an example of what that might look like. We did review this. These are readily available. Maybe a decade ago, last time we did this code, like these types of things weren't readily available, but you can go on your phone, even on Amazon, and purchase one of these signs for just a few $100s. So, the cost to do this type of business is worth it for a new business to have that type of identity for a period of time. And this is a recommendation from our CRA that we'd like to roll out, which essentially, we don't allow signs to have more than 25% of their window with advertising or graphics, right? But in a situation where a new business is coming forward, they're doing construction in the interior, we want them to be able to advertise on those windows, right? So they can go to Community Appearance Board and say, we want to, and these are just examples, have window signage for a period of time saying, now open or coming soon or grand opening, now hiring, all those types of things. And we could allow that for a period of time as well. And I think that was it. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that, I think this is an important task that you guys have undertaken. You said one thing that makes me feel comfortable, and you said that it was business friendly. That's important because we've had a lot of comments where it wasn't before. The fact that you've paid attention to this and it will serve more in attracting businesses to be a part of our community is very, very important. So thank you.
Thanks. That's it. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item?
Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, 33442, District 3. This came before on May 4th, the Deerfield Beach Planning and Zoning Committee, and I'm an alternate on then, so I was able to see this. And I also did research, and I'm strongly in favor of it. Again, the great thing is this was brought before the Deerfield Beach business leaders who looked through these sign code updates and changes, and they approved it. I think that's very, very important. I think that we need to have a uniform consistency codes for signage because it makes it more appealing. It gives it that consistency instead of the hodgepodge. You go to a lot of other cities and you see a whole hodgepodge of different colors, different lengths, and it's very confusing. The bottom line for these signs is communication. So the better communication, the better results, better business. So I'm definitely in favor of this. The 3 features that was spoken about, I'm in favor of them. I support the grand opening signs because when a business opens, we need to shout it out to the community. So I'm very in favor of the grand opening signs. The wind signs or the feather flag signs, they're fun to look at, but they're dangerous. They don't meet wind codes and they're very difficult to navigate. And I mean to regulate, I'm sorry. And finally, something that wasn't brought out that I saw in the code because I did research on it. One of the changes would be an amendment to allow 1 drive-through sign per lane. I think that's important because a lot of times when I go through a bank drive-through or a fast food drive-through, when there's so many signs, I get confused. And I think other people get confused also. So this amendment where it's 1 drive-through sign per lane, I think that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen Shelley, 190 Durham D. I have a question about it. I think it's a great idea. A good job. I remember Golden Crust mentioned they had a problem because they had a feather flag that had to be removed. And then also the barber shop next door, and this is on Military. And it may have been addressed in the presentation, but I would like to know how businesses that are on little storefronts like that, if they can't use the feather flag, what are their options? And again, it may have been addressed, but I just didn't hear that for businesses of that size. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. I'd also like to get a little bit more information regarding the signage for businesses when they are in a strip mall. I do know that I've had conversations with different businesses who are right there on Hillsborough, just east of Powerline and Military Trail, between Powerline and Military Trail, where their businesses are not allowed to have a sign because the other businesses in the strip mall take up all the signage allowed for that particular size strip mall. There's additional businesses there, but they're not allowed to put a sign out. Is there any way that we can work with those particular businesses to give them a little bit more leniency, a little bit more leeway, and making sure that all the businesses do have a sign on Hillsborough to be able to locate, to be able to promote their business in the strip mall when it's just a straight shot? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Close it to the public. Mr. Power, can you address some of that?
Thank you. Eric Power, Director of Planning and Development Services. In reference to the Golden Crust, after the gentleman from Golden Crust came before commission, I reached out to him the next day and asked him if he would be my guinea pig for this particular grand opening banner program, and he agreed. So just as a way to start this and make sure that it worked, I asked him, would you be interested in, searching for a banner sign to put out saying grand opening, if that would be a reasonable cost for you, and I asked him a bunch of questions like that. He had done some research. That actually image came from him. That was the website that they used. He was very agreeable to it. And so that was kind of where some of this came from, and making sure that this is something that the average business could do. So yes, so that to answer that question, that is something that we did. I think they just had their grand opening. Their official grand opening. I think it was maybe this week or next week. They're having an official grand opening, but they did get a banner sign. Regarding Mrs. Freitag's question, every business that has a public entrance is allowed to have one wall sign. So as an example, if you were like an office building where you went in through a main entrance to get to another business, to get to like a unit 1, 2, or 3, you don't have the opportunity for advertising outside. But any retail business where you would physically walk in through the door, they're permitted one wall sign. I think that she might be referring to ground signs and the amount of additional signs that might be available on a ground sign. And that's related to the property owner. As an example, like if you were the Deerfield Mall, it has 40 different tenants and they've got 8 slots on their ground sign. Not everyone gets that. They pay for that. The larger tenants pay for those things. So unfortunately, our code does prohibit ground signs being from within 100 feet of each other. And that is to ensure that you don't have sort of what they call like a tombstone, or look where, there's just sign after sign after sign, and it's very confusing for the driver. And some of those particular plazas on Hillsborough have multiple tenants in the same way like Palm Plaza or the Cove has, where there's many, many, many owners. And so all of them do not have the opportunity for a ground sign. That's current code. And we did not address that in this code because that would be sign proliferation where there's a lot of people with too many signs, but everyone should be allowed to have a wall sign. All right, thank you.
Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, second by Commissioner Preston. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Okay, we are now at comments by administration and legal. I just have one comment tonight. I just want to let the commission know, I think I sent you an email on this earlier, but the amended Live Local Act was signed into law. I believe it was last Thursday. It was late last week, by the governor, and it is effective immediately. So I know we've discussed it. We've discussed the implications of that. And of course, I'm here, if you'd like to discuss, further, outside of this meeting, and I'll turn it over to the manager.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So it is time to look at redistricting. We do this every 4 years. And we did have our city clerk work with a consultant to provide you with some options here. And they are here to. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. I apologize. I do not have comments this evening. I do not. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, you might as well.
Okay. Item number 17 is a presentation by Dr. Ronald Schultz and potential action by City Commission regarding redistricting for the city's municipal election pursuant to city charter.
Okay, so thank you for that save, Anthony. And as I was mentioning, it is time to do the redistricting. And I will start off, and I know we have a presentation, an excellent presenter here this evening, but I do want to start off and just say that the analysis has shown that we do need to look at redistricting this year in some fashion. And there are some options available to you that will be presented. Also, they'll discuss with you the methodologies that they used in determining why these three options were the most suitable options for the city commission. And they'll talk in more detail about the criteria that is used for determining what redistricting needs to look like and why. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I'm Dr. Ron Schultz. I'm a professor emeritus, retired 35 years, just like Mrs. Rothberger. Okay. And I had some tears in my eyes at the going away event as well. Okay. Anyway, I also would to kind of loosen up here a little bit. I did the first districting for this city, 1987, 80, and 88. And Mr. Parnas, who I believe represents District 3, in which, Century Village is located. Okay.
Yes.
Century Village sent busloads, of people to the redistricting hearings, in the late 80s. It was quite exciting times. Okay. So I have some experience, and I continue to do redistricting here for another 15 years. Okay. Tonight, we're going to talk about, this year's issues, and I'm accompanied by Mr. Michael Stamm, sitting to my left over there, and Mr. James Gamma Clark. Both of them are colleagues of mine. We've done a number of districting studies just since the 2020 census came out. I think this is number 11 that we're working on at the moment. So over the last 3 years, we've done quite a few redistricting studies, and those are all in Broward and Palm Beach counties. So with that, I think I'm going to turn over the mic to Mr. James Gamma Clark, who's going to put up a PowerPoint, which I guess you'll get to see on your machines there, and we'll go through our analysis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. James Gamma Clark, Florida Atlantic University's Geosciences Department. And as Dr. Schultz suggested, I'm here this evening to present our analysis on your existing commission districts and also to present the alternatives that we've created for your consideration. Our agenda will go through the redistricting team. Well, Dr. Schultz already did that. We'll discuss the city charter and how it pertains to the redistricting process. We'll talk about our process and the data that we've used in conducting our analysis. We'll talk about our analysis of your districts and the population projections that we've performed for you. And then we'll move on to the actual redistricting process, where we talk about the parameters that we use that guide us in our decision-making. And then we'll get to the crux of the evening, where we actually talk about the three alternatives that we've created for your consideration. So the city charter has a couple of interesting things to say about redistricting. The first, of course, is that it has to be done every 4 years. And that's important because while some cities will do it on a decennial basis, those cities can rely on only the US Census data. In your case, because you have to do it every 4 years, you have to update that data. So a population projection is required. And so we've done that for you. The second thing, of course, is that the charter specifically states that each district should be, as nearly as practicable as possible, equal in population. And finally, it says that no sitting commissioner shall be disqualified from completing his or her term as a result of redistricting. So we were initially hired in April to conduct an analysis of your existing districts. We did that. We submitted a report to you early this month. And part of that analysis included the population projection that we described, and that was using CO data that was provided to us by your city staff through to December of this year. As I suggested, we submitted that report, and it was immediately determined that we should move on to Part B, which I'll come back to in just a moment. The data that we use for your study is the same data that's used all across the country, whether you're talking about the federal level or the county level or the municipal level. And that is, it's the US Census redistricting summary file. Same data all across the country. Specifically, when you're doing redistricting at the municipal level, you have to use the smallest enumeration unit available that's made available by the census, and that is the census block. And we use those census blocks like little pieces of a puzzle, putting together a jigsaw that makes up your 4 districts. The second set of data that we used was housing data that was provided to us by your city staff. And that was specifically for the purposes of creating our population projection, for updating the data from Census Day, April 1st of 2020, through to this year. So here we see a map that shows your existing city district, which you, of course, are very familiar with. And here we see the US Census count of population for the city as of April 1st of 2020. It stated that the population of the city was 86,859, and that the average population, if you divide by 4, for each district was 21,715. This means that your largest district was District 3 at 22,548 people. It was 3.8% higher than the mathematical average. And the smallest district was District 1 at 19,769 people, or 9% fewer than the mathematical average. What this means is that your current districts are out of balance. The total deviation is 17.9%, with a mean of 4.5%, which is not too bad. But the spread, the difference between your largest district and the smallest district, is 12.8%. The spread value is where we take the deviation of your largest district and add that to the deviation of the smallest district. And if they exceed 10%, which they do in this case, then you are deemed to be out of balance. And so based upon that alone, it would warrant redistricting. However, of course, as per your charter, we need to do a population estimate. And so that's where we took into consideration all the construction that's been done in the city since Census Day of 2020, and including a project that's presently under construction, will be completed by the end of the year. And based upon that, we estimate that by the end of this year, since Census Day of 2020, 1,396 people will have been added to the city. The majority of which, 1,067, are located in District 3, which you'll recall is already the largest district in the city. So, if we look at our population estimate, we see that the total will grow to 88,255, and this gives us an average for each district of 22,064. So in other words, when we engage in redistricting, each district should have as close to that number as we can possibly manage it. The largest district is again District 3 at 23,615 people, but now it's 7% more than the theoretical average. And the smallest district is again District 1 at 20,038 people, but now it's 9.2% lower than the theoretical average. So what this means is that the population imbalance has risen since Census Day of 2020. The mean deviation has risen to 4.6%, and the spread, the difference between the largest and the smallest districts, has gotten larger. It's now 16.2%. Again, this exceeds that 10% threshold that suggests that redistricting is warranted. So the next step is that we had to engage in this redistricting process because your election districts are out of balance. The overall pattern that we have to work towards as we create your new boundaries for your consideration is that District 1 has to grow. It has to get bigger in size in order to gain additional population. Similarly, or conversely rather, District 3 has to shrink. It has to lose population, and therefore it's going to have to give up some geographic area to do that. All of these changes that we're describing here, you make one change, it has a knock-on effect to another. And so you'll see as we go through our various alternatives, this domino effect as we make one change leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. So we have created 3 map alternatives for your consideration. How do we engage in this redistricting effort? Well, there are some parameters that we have to follow. The first is striving to achieve reasonable population equality across your districts. So as I alluded to, we need to make sure that at no point do we exceed that maximum 10% deviation threshold. The second point here is that we must strictly adhere to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which states that arbitrary dilution of minority population clusters and other discriminatory practices are strictly prohibited. The second criterion is geographic contiguity and appropriate compactness. We will always seek spatially compact districts. We will follow major natural and man-made boundaries where possible. We will maintain respect for communities of interest, and we will minimize the degree of change in pre-existing patterns of districts to the extent possible. That said, population equity is the primary factor here. The others are significant in guiding decisions towards reasonable population balance. There is another factor at play here that's a relatively new factor, and that's new state law, specifically House Bill number 411. It has a couple of pertinent points to make in regards to redistricting. The first is that districts may not be drawn with the intent to favor or disfavor a candidate for or a member of the governing body based upon their residential address. That each municipality shall create districts that are as equal in proportion to their respective populations as practicable. And that such changes may not be made in the 270 days before a regular general election for the governing body of the municipality. Of course, the city's next election is March 11th of 2025. This means that any new districts that you select must be adopted before June 14th. Good. Okay, so we can actually move on to why we came here tonight, which is to talk about the alternative district maps that we've created for you. And here's the first of those. This is what we call Alternative 1. And Alternative 1 is what we call our minimalist option, right? So the 3 alternatives that we present to you tonight all progressively get a little bit higher in their order of change from the existing districts. We start out with the least amount of change that we can possibly make to bring your districts into balance. And Alternative 1 does that here. But we also strive to achieve some other goals as we described in our redistricting parameters. We will seek to improve spatial contiguity where possible and spatial compactness where possible. We will also seek to, if we can, using those major thoroughfares and natural boundaries to improve the recognizability of your districts if possible. So here we see a change map. We've highlighted for you the 3 areas that are changing on this map versus your existing districts. And I'm going to go through each of those changes one by one for you in a little bit of detail. So to improve both population equity and spatial contiguity, District 1 expands to include that part of District 2 presently found between Northeast 3rd Avenue and Dixie Highway in the east-west direction, and Southwest 15th Street and Northeast 48th Street in the north-south direction. This area is home to 2,518 residents. So as we stated, District 1 has to grow. And so this change accomplishes that goal. But it also accomplishes another goal. At the moment, District 1 is actually split up between 2 relatively distinct geographic areas, and is only connected by a very slim right-of-way that is Dixie Highway. So the contiguity under your existing districts is kind of tenuous. this adjustment fixes that problem for you. It gets rid of any question as to whether this district is actually contiguous. Under the second change, District 2 expands south and west to the city limits and to the center line of the CSX or Tri-Rail Railway. This unifies the Bonnie Loch and Westsetter communities under a single district and adds 2,896 people to District 2. So this addition is offsetting the 2,500 approximate people District 2 lost under the prior change. But it also improves spatial compactness. At the moment, as we just alluded to, this district, District 2 and 3, are kind of interwoven under this funky letter E sigma shape that's carving up these two communities. Here, this change unifies those communities under a single district and makes the boundaries much more recognizable. It's the southern boundary of the city, and it's the Tri-Rail Railway. It's not, oh, it's somewhere in the middle of this community here, right? So it's much, it's clarified as to what your boundary is. The final change under Alternative 1, and this is specifically to improve the population balance between Districts 2 and 3. 322 residents that live in the area between Hillsborough Boulevard and Southwest 10th Street in the north-south direction, and I-95 and the Tri-Rail Railway in the east-west direction are added to District 3. So, overall deviation is improved under Alternative 1. The mean deviation falls to 2.3%, and critically, the spread falls below that 10% threshold to 7%. Here we see map Alternative 2, and as you can see under this alternative, the magnitude of change is rising as we move forward. The eastern part of your city, east of 95, stays exactly the same as it is in Alternative 1. What you see change under this map is the western part of the city, and specifically the border between District 3 and District 4 becomes the center line of the Southwest 10th and the Sawgrass Expressway. So this makes for not only improved population equity, but it also improves the spatial compactness and recognizability of your districts. Now here we see the change map, and you can see a lot more red on this map, which again is telling you that this map is undergoing a considerable degree of change from your existing districts. Again, we've already talked about the changes to the eastern part of the city, so I won't go over those again, but I will go over the changes that are unique to this particular alternative. So to improve both population equity and spatial compactness, District 3 expands to include that part of District 4 found between Southwest 10th and Wiles Road in the north-south direction, and the western city limits and Military Trail, the eastern boundary of the Crystal Heights subdivision, in the east-west direction. This adds 7,248 people to District 3. District 3 also expands to include that part of District 2, presently found between Southwest 10th and Northwest 49th Street in the north-south direction, and I-95 and the CSX Railway in the east-west direction. This adds 1,073 people to District 3. Finally, we swap this territory with, in the northern part of, to the north of Southwest 10th, District 4 is absorbing that part of District 3, presently found between Hillsborough Boulevard and Southwest 10th in the north-south direction, and the area between the CSX Railway and Powerline Road in the east-west direction. This adds 7,316 people to District 4. Lastly, we see the same 322 people that we saw move under Alternative 1, except this case, this area is moving to District 4 under this alternative, whereas previously it moved to District 2. The other changes are exactly the same as you saw under Alternative 1. So, population deviation is improved even more. Population balance is improved even more under this alternative. The mean deviation falls to just 2%, while the spread falls to 4.7%. Our final alternative is Alternative 3, and you can see here that there's far more change in this alternative than any of the other two. And what we've effectively done is split the city into 4 quadrants: a northeastern quadrant, a northwestern quadrant, southeastern quadrant, and a southwestern quadrant. And this map uses only major thoroughfares as the borders for the cities, where those thoroughfares are either major roadways or railways. Again, we can see a lot of change, but the western part of the city is exactly as we saw under alternative 2. And so what we're really going to focus on here are the 2 changes that are unique to the eastern part of the city. So the first of these is where District 1 expands north and west this time, absorbing that part of District 2 presently found between Dixie Highway and I-95 in the east-west direction, and between the city's northern limits and Southwest 10th Street in the north-south direction. This area is home to 9,500 residents. Offsetting this loss, District 2 adds that part of District 1 presently found to the south and east of Dixie and Southeast 10th as far as the Federal Highway and the city's southern limits, taken together with the area between Northeast 3rd Street and Dixie in the east-west direction and Northeast 48th Street and the city's southern limits in the north-south direction. This area is home to 7,307 residents. Again, west of 95, everything as previously described, everything is as previously described under alternative 2. So what we get at the end of this are not only your district's most compact, most recognizable districts, but also the most balanced. The total deviation falls to 5.1%, the mean deviation falls to 1.3%, and the spread falls to just 2.5%. Each of these statistics are the lowest of the 3 alternatives that we presented for you this evening. Of course, the advantage of having a high degree of population balance is that it provides you with more margin for error moving forward. If you have development in any one district, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room before you have to engage in this redistricting process moving forward. Of course, you can't development-proof districts, but you can buy yourself perhaps some more time before you have to engage in this process again. Of course, you'll have to review your districts in 4 years, but you may not actually have to engage in redistricting. So to summarize, each alternative improves population equity. Alternative 1 makes minimal adjustments to achieve reasonable population equity. Alternative 2 provides improved population equity and compactness. And alternative 3 further improves equity and compactness and boundary recognizability by effectively splitting the city into 4 quadrants. That said, each of these 3 alternatives are viable and equally valid for your selection. So to summarize, just to show you again, here's our alternative 1 map, our alternative 2 map, and our alternative 3 map. And with that, we will be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Commission, any questions right now? Is there anyone from the public? I'll open to the public, see if the public has any comments on this, then we'll take it from there.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I think the message that I got from this presentation is that District 1 needs to have more babies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Commissioners. Joe Cummings, 267 Oak Ridge P. You know, the District 3, as you guys reported, had about 22,000 people. The problem is, especially in Century Village, that over half of the residents of Century Village are non-voting foreign nationals. So the summertime population is less than a third of the population it is during the rest of the year, and that's who is our registered voters are. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone online? Yes, former Representative Reed, go ahead.
Mayor and Commissioners, I would hope that you are not planning to make a decision this evening on this map. As a resident, I would like to have the opportunity to converse with my commissioners or all the commissioners, as well as yourself, Mayor, on these renderings that have been given to us. So I'm just going to ask that you please not make a final decision on this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay. I'll close it to the public then. This is our first, correct?
Mayor, this actually, there's no reading on this item. This is the presentation. We're hoping that at the end of the presentation, we could get some direction from the city commission as to which alternative they would like to see brought forth at the next meeting in June on the resolution.
And that's just what I'm asking you not to do.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Appreciate it. Okay. Commission?
I am trying to get back in.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Parnas.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, good. I seem to have lost my picture, whatever. I'm going to make a motion to approve one. It's the least, how can I put it?
Invasive.
It's really the basic change. I lose some territory. I don't mind. I lose some people. I don't mind that, so that it gets more equal. And as far as voting, I'm not concerned about the voting in terms of my district votes as well as any other district. So I see no advantage in ripping apart the city. This is the least invasive of the three, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We're not taking motions tonight. We're just giving staff some direction and where we're leaning towards.
Okay.
Bring it to us in the future, but thank you for letting us know that number one's your top choice. Commissioner Preston?
I too would agree with the commissioner. That would be my choice. Alternative one. It meets the criteria for the redistricting and it's the least invasive.
Vice Mayor Drosky?
I three would support alternative one as the least invasive.
Commissioner Hudak?
I agree that alternative one is the least evasive or whatever terminology we want to use. But we also have to look down the road and see how our city is evolving and making sure that we evolve these districts to match that evolution of our city. And that's why I think we need to, it's real quick and real easy to say, well, it's just this little section here. And we're done with it. But where does that put us 4 years from now? Where does that put us 8 years from now? And eventually our city is going to radically change, and these zones, these districts are going to radically change. Right now, yeah, a quick fix, an easy fix is alternative one. But I think eventually, at some point down the road, alternative three is going to be what our city looks like. We can kick the can down the road and wait 4 years from now or 8 years from now, whenever another commission is sitting in our seats. But this commission has always looked towards the future. This commission has always looked to make the tough decisions. And that's why I think we should at least look at it now and consider it now while this commission has that opportunity. And that's why I think we need to seriously consider alternative three as well.
Thank you. I think based on one of the suggestions made tonight, I think this whole thing could change in 9 months. So if we go by what was suggested, but I think that hopefully staff's got enough direction. Does that give you an idea?
Mayor, we'll take our best stab at bringing forth a resolution that has the alternative, which I believe the commission at least showed some favor towards. But I want to also make you aware that even if we do want a resolution, you have the ability to change that number, so if we came forward, and I'll just tell you, it seems as though we'd probably bring forward a resolution with alternative number one. If you voted at the next meeting and said you wanted alternative number two, it really is the change of a number on the resolution. I think the city attorney would be okay with it.
Yeah, and I would just suggest keeping the other alternatives in the backup as well, so the public has it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that fulfills the request that was made by former representative. So I think that works pretty well. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are now at, well, we're still under city commission business. We're on item 18. Item 18 is an ordinance of the city commission of the city of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending chapter 2 administration, article 3 officials, officers, and
gentlemen.
employees, division 2 travel expenditure policy, sections 2-221 generally, and section 2-222 proof of expenditures per diem rates settlement to provide for a $200 monthly allowance to the mayor and each commissioner to address travel, meal, and parking expenses incurred in the Tri-County area in connection with their duties of office, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. This is first reading. You may recall there was some discussion about this at some prior meetings. Commissioner Parnas proposed this concept. So this is a proposed code change sponsored by Commissioner Parnas to provide for a $200 monthly allowance, and it would cover travel, meals, and parking within the Tri-County area. Depending on where this goes from the commission, we may need to make some changes to our travel policy procedures as well. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions, but I know Commissioner Parnas is on as well.
Commissioner Parnas, did you want to comment first?
Yes, I'd like to. Saturday night, I was at a dinner with a former employee of our city, Tom Good, who's now a commissioner in Pembroke Pines. And I asked him, what kind of expense allowance do you have? He says, $1,100 a month, plus other goodies. He said, really? $1,100? My God, that certainly makes your job a lot easier. He said, yeah, travel, meals with, every time we go out with a contractor, we got to pay our own meals. That's the law, and we do. But it comes out of our pocket. And I find 1,100 other cities giving 1,000. What am I asking? $200 to cover expenses like gas. I ride through my district every day. Nobody compensates me to do that. Nobody puts a gun to my head to do it. I do it because I want to see a better city. I want to see bulk violators ticketed. I want to see that eliminated. And that takes effort. I don't have another job. This is my job. And I do it well. People have told me they ride down Military Trail now from 48th Street to Sample Road without seeing a couch laying on the road. That's our city. Same in the village. I got 1,000 eyes out there looking for people that don't want to obey the law. They think they're above it. Well, you're not. And as long as I have wheels or legs and the energy to do it, I'll do my job. What am I asking for? A little help? Yeah, like other cities do for their commissioners. Incidentally, they make double what we make in salary besides expenses. I'm not complaining about our salary or what we get. To many commissioners, it's a second job. For many of us, it's the only job, and we try to do it 100%. Adding $200 for expenses is not asking for the moon. We lose people because we don't pay them enough. I want whoever wants to run for commission able to do so, not saying, can I afford it? Because there are expenses involved that they don't cover. That limits our pool. I want our pool for commissioners open to all who qualify mentally, physically, but not necessarily financially. So I ask you to approve this without question. It's a minimal amount of money to reimburse us for what we spend.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments before I open up to Commissioner Preston?
Are we eligible for Meals on Wheels? Just wondering.
Okay, anyone else? I'm gonna go ahead and open it to the public. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item?
Go ahead.
Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, 33442, District 3. I'm in favor of looking into this expense account for car allowance. Right now, the standard mileage rate for the use of a car driven for a Deerfield Beach official for official business is 56 cents per mile. There've been significant increases in gas prices. There've been significant increases in car insurance and also in parking fees as well. Now, a Deerfield Beach commissioner not only has to go over their district, but they also have to go through the 16.5 miles of our city. Not only that, but Deerfield Beach commissioners are also tri-county, meaning that they go to county and commissions like the Broward County Commission, Broward County Planning Commission, the MPO, the Broward League of Cities, and the soon-to-be Broward Waste Authority. They have to attend meetings there. Now, our sister cities, Boca Raton, Delray Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Parkland, Tamarack, Sunrise, Pompano Beach, we're in competition with them, let's face it. They have this tool with these expense account significantly more than what's being proposed here. They have a tool in their arsenal, and they fight for state funding just like us, but they have an advantage now. They also fight for federal grants just like us, but they have an advantage because they have this tool and we don't. And I think this is something that we should definitely look into. The bottom line, we have to be in at least some sort of subpar porridge with our sister cities. They have the expense accounts. We need to have that tool as well for the commissioners to do the best job to serve the people of Deerfield Beach. And that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. For informational purposes only, here are some of the benefits that commissioners already get for their part-time job. And all the numbers I'm going to quote are annual per commissioner. $37,828 is salary. $6,921 is dues and memberships. $5,780 is travel and training. $8,245 is something called other commodities. $1,044 is cell phone. $250 is clothing allowance. And now there's some other items that I could not attach a price tag to. And that includes health insurance, long-term disability, short-term disability, life insurance, and a pension. The District 3 Commissioner who is sponsoring this agenda item is the same commissioner that only 18 months ago championed a charter amendment to keep him in office an additional 4 years over and above the term limits in place. The optics don't look good here. However, the District 3 Commissioner 2 meetings ago did say that he is worried that qualified candidates may not run for office unless they can receive additional compensation, like this $200 a month. And he also mentioned this again just tonight, a few minutes ago. So I'm confident the District 3 Commissioner would have no problem amending his ordinance to state that if this ordinance is approved, it would only apply starting March 11th, 2025. That change would certainly improve the optics here, Commissioner Parnas.
Thank you.
Joe Cummings, 267 Oak Ridge P. You know, Deerfield is at a disadvantage from most cities in the United States. Most states picked a location, other state capital, pretty close to the middle of the state. So all the counties and cities have a fair commute to that. Deerfield Beach is actually closer to two foreign national capital cities than we are to our own state capital. So I think this is a reasonable accommodation. And I think it's a conservative one to ask, since the commissioners are known to have to travel to Tallahassee. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. Just for clarification, this is for only the travel within the Tri-County area. This does not include traveling to Tallahassee or anything like that, as that is the second part of the expenditure that the attorney has brought up that needs to be addressed. When you're getting in your car and you're just driving around your hood to check on things and do the job of code enforcement, which we get paid, which we're paying them to do, I don't feel that that's necessarily an expense that the taxpayers should incur. Just because you're right through your district does not mean you should get paid for it. Try walking. Probably would be good for your health. This job is a part-time position. There is a factor that hasn't been brought up, that the IRS sets the mileage rate. And if you do not get reimbursed by the city for your mileage, you can absolutely write it off on your taxes as a non-refundable expense. No, I'm sorry, a non-reimbursable expense. For a part-time employee to get all the benefits and everything that every single one of the commissioners and mayor receive currently, we're talking probably around $55,000 total. If you think about it in a nutshell, for a part-time job, expenses are already taken care of if you choose to fill out the paperwork and provide it to the city manager appropriately. The form is there. The form's been there. An additional $200, if that's the only thing you think is going to bring somebody in to be a commissioner, is an extra $200 a month, then we are not doing our job locating the right people to be our commissioners and to sit on our dais. And coming from the commissioner who has attended the least amount of city functions for the last 6.5 years, almost 7 years, over 7 years, actually, I guess at this point. This is a laughing matter. Thank you.
Anyone else online? Representative Reed, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I know that the city has reimbursement policies for the commissioners and the mayor. I don't think what the District 3 commissioner has described as his reason for asking for this additional money is worthy. You all go out of your houses and have to drive through your commission, your district, to get to any other part of the city. I really don't think that at this point, another $200 is going to make a difference, particularly to who's going to run for office. So, Commissioner Parnas, you know, I know your heart you think is in the right place, but I truly do not see the need for an additional $200 to the commissioners at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public then. Commission?
You need a
Uh,
motion?
Commissioner Preston and then Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You know, I'm listening to the comments from the public and my colleagues that sits here, and I know his heart is in the right place. I know a lot of people would like to minimize the responsibilities of a commissioner, but you can't do that unless you're sitting in the seat, unless you know it, unless you're doing it each and every day. It's not a part-time job. And, you know, for you to think anything less than that, it's wrong. It's wrong. And do you really think it's going to stay this way forever? That you give the commissioners, you know, nothing? I don't, I can live without it, but is it right? You have to look at that. Is it right? The amount of time that you put in and what you do, $200 is not going to make me, but is it right? And the thing is, do you think for the next 10 years, we'll give them nothing, where other cities are compensating their commissioners? Is it unfair for Commissioner Parnes to ask for $200? $200 is not going to make him either. But I think it's right that he could ask that. It's not unfair. It's not something crazy. It's not outlandish. I think that it deserves consideration. It's going to have to change eventually. I can tell you that. It's going to change. Other cities are doing it. Deerfield Beach will not have the luxury for never, ever changing it. That's not going to happen. Okay. And it's very easy for those who do not participate and who don't know to say you don't need it or you don't deserve it. And I can tell you, it's not going to make me. That's not the point. The point is it right? Is it right to consider it? I think it is.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak, then Vice Verdrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, if you are thinking of running for office and representing the public so that you can get the salary that we get or the $200 expense that Commissioner Parnes is requesting, I ask you not to even bother running. This position is a position of service to our community. If you are going into it for your ego, all you got to do is look on Facebook. If you're going into it for your pocketbook, you're going to be very disappointed. If you're going into it because you may get a meal here and there, don't bother. We do this position because we love our city, because we love serving our community. That's the only reason we put up with what we put up with on a regular basis, whether it's on social media or in person, whatever the case may be. Our character is always questioned. Our motives are always questioned. Our decisions are always questioned. So again, if the fact that this doesn't pass stops you from running for office, that's fine. I ask you not to run for office because, again, the gentlemen that serve on this dais are here because we love our community. That being said, this expense account is only there if you use it. So if Commissioner Parnes doesn't go to, any events, whether it be in our city or in one of the committees that he serves, fighting for whether it's Monarch Hill or up in Tallahassee, where I've traveled with him, then he wouldn't put in the expense reimbursement and he wouldn't get it. So it's not like it's just an extra $200 that's going into his paycheck. If he doesn't go out to lunch with another commissioner or whatever the case may be, he doesn't submit the form, he doesn't get the money. So I'm not sure where the apprehension is from the public, but those are just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a few notes that I want to get through here. First and foremost is I do think that Commissioner Parnas's heart is in the right place with this. I don't think there's anything nefarious or ill-intended going on here. I think his heart is in the right place. And I don't disagree with the thought process behind it, because having sat here for the last 7+ years, and I look at the expenses that are being requested here, what they're intended to offset with respect to it says travel, but I think that is supposed to really mean like tri-county travel, because otherwise it would fall under the travel policy, which is separate from this. I want to make a distinction. This allowance is different from our travel policy. So if this is not allowed, that doesn't mean we can't go to Tallahassee or to Washington or somewhere else. We certainly can. That doesn't fall within this. But the travel, the meals, and parking expenses, I mean, those alone, the travel, I mean, I know with me going around the Tri-County area, and just the parking, if you go to a school board meeting, a county commission meeting, any of these meetings, it's all paid parking. I mean, I'm probably literally out of pocket, $1,000, $2,000 a year, minimum. I've never sat down and calculated it. At least a couple of thousand a year on my own dime, for doing this. And so Commissioner Parnas's thought and heart is in the right place. Where I get a little cautious on this is the comments that I made at the previous meeting, and it has nothing to do with the amount of the money that's involved here. It could be $2, $200, $2,000. I'm not, it's not the amount, it's the rationale that's behind or tied to it. I think it needs to be, as I said before, directly tied to our duties. And that this does not accomplish that. I disagree with you, Commissioner Hudak. I read it that we get the $200 whether we travel 1 mile or 1,000,000 miles. It doesn't, there's no restriction on the way that this is written. So while Commissioner Parnas and the rest of us may be very diligent in driving throughout our districts, the next commission may sit at home and they get the $200 regardless. So to me, there needs to be some kind of correlation between the amount and what the commission or commissioner is actually doing. And I also read it to apply to this commission. There's no restriction. If it passed, it would apply to this commission today as well, which I have a problem with. I'm not voting on this for me. I've lived with this for 7 years, and I'm okay living with it for however long. So I have some concerns going forward. I think the thought process is in the right place. I'm not sure that the way it's written and spelled out accomplishes that goal.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say this. I think it's some unfair criticism of Commissioner Parnas on this. He served on the Broward County Planning Council for the city of Deerfield Beach, which is all the way down in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And I've served on it too, and it is not an easy hike, and it's something that goes beyond his regular duties. There are plenty of things for it. You know what? And at the risk of bringing in ageism into this, I'm going to tell you this. I wish I could I pray that at 87 years old, I could do half the stuff that Commissioner Bernie Parnas does. So, for those, he doesn't attend an event, I want to see what you're attending at 87. Then come talk to me. Ridiculous. To bring this in a disparaging part of it to Commissioner Parnas is incorrect, unfair, and is just, in my opinion, wrong. And to what, Commissioner Preston said, that's not what he's about. That's not what this is about. So I think this criticism is unfair. When I first ran for office, I asked all the commissioners that were in place at the time, including the mayor at the time, how many hours do they put into this position per week? What does it take? And I got everything from 6 hours to 35, depending on who was sitting there. who I sat and privately met with, and they told me. And that's pretty much what you can do with this position. Now, there's some people that drive around, they want to drive through their districts. It's weird because we get criticized when we don't drive through our districts and we're not seeing things. And I guess apparently we're getting criticized for driving around their districts and looking for things to try to fix. But, you know, that's the nature of the position. I do feel that this ad, I think we're compensated. I think there is a layer of complication to this that doesn't make it worth it, in my opinion. I've served on the MPO, I've served on the Broward County Planning Council. I'm a rep on the League of Cities. You know, there's plenty of things we travel to. I can't even tell you how much money has come out of my pocket just to cover these things, despite what people like to misrepresent and say that we're attending all these events on the taxpayer dime, and they don't realize how clueless they are about, you know, the accuracy of their statements. But I don't agree with this. I can't get behind it right now, but I do know that the intention of this is in the right place. And I do think that the travel policy needs to change, because the travel policy is, you know, we're on the northern part of the county. And it is not if you've gone anywhere down near Hallandale, the distance it takes to get there is so difficult. Can I help you, miss?
Make a comment.
You missed that opportunity. We already closed it to the public. I'm so sorry. That's okay. But no, you can't make a comment. Thank you, miss. I appreciate it, but you can't. Okay. Thank you. So, you know, I think that needs to change. As far as this, I do think it's a limited request. I understand, Commissioner, and I know your heart's in the right place. Unfortunately, it's not something that the way it's written that I can get behind either. So.
If I may, Mayor?
Yes.
For clarification, my understanding of Commissioner Parnas's proposal, of course, he can correct me if he has something different, was that this would be a $200 monthly travel allowance in lieu of reimbursement.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Parnas, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
You just muted yourself, Commissioner.
Unmute. Yes. The fact that I spent 10 years on the Planning Council, I discount that. That was done out of the law. The fact that I was able to do a few things for Deerfield Beach, fine. As far as giving back to the city, I sponsored a Little League team for a year. I gave money to Pack of Rattlers after I was reelected. I'm involved in one way or another with the youth of Deerfield Beach. I support our teachers. As a former member of Kiwanis, I read to the students. I gave my time, and we gave out dictionaries to fourth graders. You know the most important thing for them? They wanted sign on the back of the dictionary. They all wanted to learn sign. I cherished the 7 years I spent as commissioner. But I'm looking ahead, and I'm looking at the competition. And when I see somebody like Tom Good, who left us, went to Pembroke Pines and is now a commissioner, or friends that I had on the Planning Council, like Anthony Castillo, who's now mayor of a city. I look back with joy that I was able to help. But I'm not just thinking of myself. I'm thinking of the competition. I'm thinking of looking at what the other cities give their commissioners, and I say, what's wrong with Deerfield? Why do they treat their commissioners as second-class citizens? When I see Pembroke Pines giving $1,100 a month in expenses, other cities $750, $1,000, we get nothing. Why? Are we not in competition with the other cities? Are we so far behind the times that $200 a month would break the city to make it easier for commissioners to do their job? Just think of it as 3 tanks of gas for a month, or 1 payment of your insurance to help out. The money we make, I would say, in our city, is probably among the lowest of all the employees of the city. Yet we're expected to do whatever we have to help the city run correctly. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve this and hope I get a second.
Okay, a motion from Commissioner Parnas,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Preston. Can we do roll call?
Commissioner Hudak,
Because of my respect for Commissioner Parnas, I'm going to say yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes?
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No.
Mayor Gantz.
No.
We are now at comments by mayor and city commission.
Let's start with District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight was a good opportunity to kind of tie into what I want to bring up tonight, because at the beginning of the meeting, under the awards and recognitions, number 2, we had the recognition presented by Captain Hofstein to BSO Law Enforcement, and we do this once a month. You know what? But I saw a couple things in the last couple of days that make me realize that we shouldn't be doing this just for BSO. We have really good employees here that need to be recognized as well. And I spoke to the city manager and he indicated that something will be forthcoming later this summer. But I just want to highlight 2 things that I personally saw. And I want to give a caveat before I start, is the 2 individuals, one was in sustainable management and the other one was in Parks and Rec. And those are 2 departments that we as commissioners are likely to run into in our duties. Not necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but if you go to an event, you're likely to see individuals working from those particular departments. You're not going to necessarily see, unless at a commission meeting, you're not going to see IT. You're not going to, or somebody from bookkeeping, or necessarily anyone from the clerk's office. You're not going to run into those individuals on a day-to-day basis. So it's not fair that I'm recognizing 2 individuals that, you know, we do see on a day-to-day basis, but I don't want to not recognize them because they did do such a good job as well. So I think what the city manager is going to propose later will cover the situations where the individuals that we don't see regularly going forward. But I do want to call out 2 individuals by name, in no particular order, for what they've done to and what they do on a regular basis to our city. So yesterday, actually, Monday morning, as I was leaving my house and driving through the neighborhood to go to my day job, I saw the truck, the bulk pickup truck that has the claw picking up the bulk debris. And the particular house, this one was a pile of leaves that they had out front. I mean, and this was like no small pile. I mean, picture the videos that you see where kids or dogs jumping into a pile of leaves in the fall. That's what this looked like. And so Ron Moss, who's our employee with the department, not only picked the leaves up with the claw from the truck, and there's an art to it, because if you do and you grasp the debris, you want to make sure that you're not tearing up somebody's yard too. So you don't want to tear up a big chunk of grass as well. So he picks up, you know, in several scoops, the big pile of leaves, and then he proceeds to get out of his truck. This is on a hot day, mind you, too. It's been blistering hot the last couple of days. He gets out of his truck, and he has a rake with his truck. He rakes up the leaves that he didn't get, did not get into another pile, and then proceeds back to the claw to pick those up as well. He could have easily driven off. The leaves that were left over were flat. There was no mound left. The leaves that were there were flat. So you could have easily continued to driven off and gone on to the next pile, and got home, into where it's cooler, than to get out of your truck and do this. But he did that, and that caught my eye. Nobody's watching him. He didn't see me watch him, but I just happened to catch my eye. What was he going to do with this big pile of leaves? So he got out of his truck, picked up his rake, raked everything back together, and put it back into the bulk truck. And so for that, I want to thank Ron Moss and Chad Gressick. Is he still here? No, he's not here. But Chad, I want you to recognize Mr. Moss and thank you from me for doing a job well done. The second individual was at the Ocean Blues and Brews Festival that we had this weekend. Another absolutely blistering hot day. I mean, I got there early on Saturday, and then in the morning, actually, and it was hot then. And this individual was already there when I was there in the morning, and she was still there late into the evening. And if you recall, at the end of that festival, probably in the 7 o'clock time range, I guess, the heavens opened up and it absolutely poured. And it poured and it poured and it poured. And it actually brought an end to the festival a little bit early because the rain was just so hard. The music stopped because then the lightning came after that. But the festival basically finished early because of Mother Nature. But Jessie King from the Parks and Rec Department, I watched her from underneath the tent. I was nice and dry underneath the tent. But I watched her in the pouring rain as the festival was coming to a close. There were chairs at the top of the stadium seating over the stage, folding chairs. She was removing the folding chairs and shutting down the event in the absolute pouring rain. She had no reason to. She could have very easily have been under the tent with the rest of us. But she chose on her own to take her lead and start folding up the chairs and shutting down the event and getting things out of people's way that were trying to leave the event to make it more safe. So for that, is Greg Warner here? He's not here either. We're 0 for 2. We're 0 for 2 on department heads. So for Greg Warner and your staff, I want to say thank you to Jessie King. Again, she didn't know I was watching her either. But these are two individuals in our city going above and beyond, I think, the scope of their duties are on a daily basis that make this city great. So I am going to continue to call out people by name when I see it. I fully recognize that I won't see all departments and those behind the scenes, and you deserve to be recognized too, but that's not going to stop me from when I do see someone doing something great for mentioning it here up on the dais. And I will leave it at that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. District 3.
Thank you. Many of you probably don't know, but I had heart surgery 2 weeks ago. I'm out of the hospital a week, and today I had all the tubes taken out. I don't know what's keeping me standing tonight at this meeting, but I promised myself I would go. I intended to be there in person, but on advice from my caretaker, I'm glad I didn't, that we did it by Zoom. And I appreciate your support. District 3 is thriving. We're trying to work on a program to be clean, make the city more beautiful. I have 1,000 eyes out there working with me with code enforcement. People that just can't obey the law. They got to put their couch out on Saturday and let the rats eat at it all weekend after it rains. It's one of my goals. I'm proud to say when you look down Military Trail now, from 48th Street to Sample Road, on a Sunday, you don't see it loaded with garbage and couches and chairs and boxes. The landlords that we got after are cleaning up after themselves, and the city looks better. The better we look, the better our values. And it's always been my goal to make this the best city in Florida. So I thank all of you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. District 2.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank Jonathan Salas and staff for the Braithwaite opening. What a great job. I mean, we had a packed house, and it represents everything that I thought that it would. You just had so many people come out in support. But Jonathan and his staff did such a good job. I'd like to thank the city manager and city staff as well that assisted. It was a positive for the entire community. And so with that, I thank you. Yesterday, we lost an employee, went into cardiac arrest, and we lost him. And what I want to talk about now is the after effects of that. It's not very often that a person that you know, that you interact with, die on the job. Sometimes there are illnesses where someone is in the hospital or some other circumstances, but rarely does a person die on the job. And when that happens, I want to tell you, it is very, very devastating mentally. During my time as a paramedic, I saw a lot of different things, but then there are things that happen that really captures you in a different situation. I was in the presence of a person who committed suicide. And it really affected me and my partner in a really tough way. On our uniforms was blood, brain matter, that kind of thing. How can you function when you have something so devastating? Chief Boylston had the ingenuity and the insight to say, you know what? You need to go home. You need to go to, and I didn't want to go home because who wants to bring that home? But I did go to another station, and so did my partner. We went to different stations. Our employees was really shook up yesterday. And I'm going to ask the city attorney now, does this have to come before the commission? Because I'd like to see us put in place a critical debriefing policy where you bring people off the road when something like this happens immediately and debrief them and send them home. That's important. We have people, and it doesn't matter what department it happens in either, because you're dealing with human beings and you're dealing with emotions. But in the department where this happened, you have people driving big trucks, front end loaders, and all kinds of things, and it can become potentially dangerous because that person is not focused. And you got to keep in mind that just a few hours before the tragedy happened, they had been interacting. They see each other in the morning, they're laughing and they're joking, and then all of a sudden you have a tragedy. And sometimes I think that we just forget the nature of it. The city manager put out an email, which I thank him for. As he got a handle on it, he paid attention to the situation. But we need to have something in place to deal with something that critical. Because when you hear the news, it's like, the guys kept working. I think they're putting themselves and perhaps other people at risk. We need to have a critical debriefing. So I'm asking, can that be just policy change, or does that need to come before the commission?
I can work with the city manager on that to bring you something.
Okay.
Because that may be, I want to look at the employee handbook, which you do approve, and see whether that would conflict with anything in there. So I can work with the manager's office on that.
I would appreciate it. And I want to make it clear that our city manager did address it. But I want to tell you, I got calls of guys that were very challenged with continuing their job for the rest of the day. They should have been sent home. They should have been sent home, but they still were, some of them were still working. So I'd like to see that put in place. The next thing is that I want to bring attention to staff is that we have emergency numbers for things that if they happens in the city, it's an emergency, you call the number. I get calls all the time that they call these emergency numbers and nobody answers. Like this morning, water shooting up from a meter all over down on I think it's Southwest 10th Terrace. And this guy called me very early. I did call the city director in engineering, and she got on it. And he did call me later and say that some people came out there, but he said he had been calling the emergency number, and nobody picks up. And that's happened before, so we need to look at that and take care of that. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. District 1?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very pointed comments, Commissioner. Appreciative. Again, just to reiterate, the grand opening of the Braithwaite Center was tremendous. The turnout was standing room only, and the place looks great. And as I said in my comments, it's the employees that make it what it is. To Commissioner Vice Mayor Drosky's point, our employees are what make this a great city. Ocean Blues and Brews was, I know it was washed out at the end, but it was still a great event. And again, thank you to our employees for making it a wonderful event. We have another one coming up on Monday, Memorial Day celebration, not to be confused with Veterans Day. And this year it's going to be held at the Braithwaite Center at 9:00 a.m. as opposed to the pier where we've always had it. So I hope we have a tremendous amount of attendance because those are the individuals who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we have a free country to live in. And hopefully we'll get great attendance to pay great respect to some great American heroes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, great job by staff with all the events that we've had here recently and really, really highlighting the city. So I want to thank you for all of that. And of course, the city, mourns the loss of our longtime employee. One of the things that comes out, no matter how great an event is, sometimes you get people that just like to stir stuff. And I just want to say this. There were people that said, well, Commissioner Preston said that it was his idea for Braithwaite Center and that he created the project. That's not the case. I wish people would stop doing those types of things. Yes, there were other people that were involved. It's a project that was a long time in the making, but, and as I told Commissioner Preston, he put the perfect cherry on top of his naming it of the Braithwaite Center, really tied in the historical part of it. There's people that just like to stir things. And I know, and you were not trying to take credit for it. You never did. It's not what was said at all. And I think, commissioners past and present, everybody, there's full participation, but your addition to what you did was a huge thing to it. So it was a great event. And, I always love when they try to stir stuff up with us. We know each other too well to fall for that stuff. So, but staff, thank you for all your hard work this past flooded weekend. And look forward to this upcoming weekend here in the city of Deerfield Beach. With that, that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.